Hello, mech fans. This is Duncan Fisher. Hold on firmly to your mana potions, fireballs, and familiars, because you are tuning in to your regularly scheduled episode of the First Circuit Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the First Circuit Podcast 130,000. So, for today's host, of course, we have Biter.
With the camera.
Ian. Yes, with the camera
Hello.
today.
I know, it's amazing.
Old Bob 10025.
Hello.
Myself, Lars. And for today, we got a special host, PGI's own community manager, Daeron.
Hey guys, good to see you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on 130.
Yay.
Woo! Yeah, good to see you too, and thank you for popping on today. This is actually very special for everyone here. So I think today what we're going to be doing here is we're going to keep it a very somewhat open discussion like we do here on the First Circuit Podcast. And we're just going to discuss Mechwarrior Online and kind of go over what had been done in the past, what we all thought could be touched upon, and looking towards the future of Mechwarrior Online. So I think Biter and Ian, you kind of have like the structure more well packed in your brains. I know I don't, so I'm gonna go ahead and bounce it off to you guys for a little bit, and let's just hop into it. Ooh, look at that face.
I'm beaming my mind to Biter because I honestly have no idea how Biter wants that.
As always,
professionals here.
Professionals, of course.
Group pros.
Naturally, of course, the game has been out for, since early 2012 or something, but we're not wanting to cover every single thing that's happened in the past. It's really particularly with a mind to the future of MWO. We want to look at the more recent patches and changes and see, what PGI has been pushing towards, generally where they have succeeded, where they failed, and where they really failed or whatever. To get the ball sort of started, what was the most recent change? I think that was it PSR or Group Q merge? I think it was
Both
PSR.
of them actually at the same time, I think.
A very similar time it was.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's touch on, the biggest one would be a Group Q merge.
Yeah.
PGI in their most recent instances have been quite positive. I would say for them is that they, put out, a lot of posts detailing their thought process, where they plan to take the game, and asking for community feedback. They then give a list of suggestions of, here's our ideas, and eventually they went with, for PSR, I think was it Jay-Z's own code, and put that into the game, and that was actually one of the best option. They chose the community option for the PSR changes, and the main concerns, at least talked about the community, though, was of course the question of stomps. And whilst they gave us some numbers, it took a while for them to actually explain what the numbers were. And so even though there's communication, we often are very, we as a community are often still scrabbling a lot at the facts. And they gave us graphs showing, hey, there's a huge column in the center, and it goes outwards, but we don't know how big that central column is. And whilst people talked a lot about stomps, I personally feel like, at least over the long term, that was not actually the biggest issue. For me, the big issue I brought up at the time when we were going through this was the fact that everyone was being reset to Tier 3 and how this would affect the new player experience. The game before, of course, was start players at the bottom tiers against the worst opponents. And that made complete sense. Now they're being putting up in the middle of the pack, and they have to lose a lot until they can finally play people of their own equal skill. So for the most part, I feel like the change, for what it was trying to achieve, accomplished most of their changes. They listened to community successfully. They communicated better than before, but not very, there could have been way more data. And crucially, there was one flaw, which is the whole everyone starting in Tier 3. And also, at least, there's other little things like it takes forever to actually move out of Tier 3 if you have to play lots and lots of matches. So, yeah. Looking, I could just keep going with all.
Yeah,
the
you're
Yeah, I know.
You're just going.
This
at
is
it.
the Biter segment on the
This
First
is the
Circuit.
Biter segment here.
Okay, this is the present
really...
though. Like this is a present, like what we have, like
it's
right
a
now,
present
basically.
day,
Like
so...
let's go back. Let's go back to the past. Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the past. What was?
Whether anyone else wanted to say anything about the PSR? This is,
Oh, okay.
Thoughts,
Okay, the present thing.
I mean, Yeah,
Well,
we've talked about the
let's-
PSR and QQ changes a lot, and I think our verdict is what Bida said. We like the more open communication. We think there are still possible improvements to communication, especially when it comes to hard data, like how many consecutive players does Mechwarrior Online even have combined with Steam and Mechwarrior Online Portal, because we only know Steam stats, stuff like that in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was certainly a improvement over what we've had before that. And I don't think particularly our issues with the game, what we as the First Circuit think should be changed going forward, are things that have to do with the recent changes, but more with the long-term past changes.
Yeah. If
yeah.
you don't mind
Yeah,
my
go ahead.
touching
Go
on
ahead.
something.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think you guys recognized, and at least listening to your last podcast, so the PSR changes were a success for the most part, right? And that was us working with the community. Now, obviously, I wasn't with PGI when this happened, but I'm aware of it all and what the results were. But working with the community, which is what we're doing now, that's like the big endeavor now, is completely working with the community. And a lot of that was based off of the success of the PSR changes. But like you guys touched on, that can be tricky, right? Filtering the community's info that comes in. And also one issue oftentimes with the community is that they're not game developers. So there's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know type stuff going on. And so it's a pretty major challenge. But I guess the point I was getting at is, for one, we pointed out at the beginning of this game's been around since like 2012. So somewhere around 8 years, everybody's been playing this. I think we're in a unique situation with Mechwarrior Online and the Mechwarrior community in that this game's been out there for a very long time. And there's still, 10,000 daily consecutive players, 40,000 players every month. So there's still a nice little community out there playing this game after 8 years, which is pretty significant. There aren't many games that I play for that long. Like I can count them on one finger. There's just not a lot. I get usually bored of games after 5 years. And so I think our community is a little bit different in that we understand this game and we can be effective at making positive changes. Yes, the community is not going to know every little detail, as far as development, maybe the engineering side of it or the design side of it, whatever. But that's fine. What we can make up that gap basically of understanding by doing exactly what you said, which is bringing forth more data. And my intentions are this time around to keep the communication more open. In fact, this last week I made a forum post because some people on the forum thread specifically about these changes were a little upset that I wasn't posting more in the forums, and I totally understood that. But basically, I'm swamped right now with getting all this data, absorbing all this data, understanding it, presenting it to Russ, and basically formulating an outline and a plan. But my intentions are starting Monday. I'm going to start a new forum thread. It's going to be basically a regular update every single Monday, telling basically the community what we did most likely the previous week and what our goals are for this coming week, so that every Monday that'll be out there. Everybody can know what we've been working on, what we're working on, and it's going to be, I'm hoping, a much better communication situation with everybody. And then on Fridays I'll be doing the podcast with Phil or whatever. So I'll be doing regular contact on Mondays and Fridays every single week, keeping the community right in step with what we're doing. So I'm hoping we can get all that data like you're talking about. We can explain the data better and make these conversations much more beneficial. And I think the community, with that information and it being filtered properly and all that, we can be highly effective. That's my hope.
Okay.
All right. One common thread I feel is, since we touched on these topics, at least on a fair number of, it would be the fact that PGI does actually, they usually can produce something that is fairly coherent. The thing is that it always feels to me that there's actually one part that falls through, that you don't finish all the homework. And that is the crucial thing with the PSR change, was that in the end it was all worked out, but you left out the final question of new players, and that that final question, that final part of the homework was not finished. The same as well with we talked about the group queue merges. At least it was sufficiently talked with the community, but a big change to the game beyond what anybody had really necessarily anticipated was obviously the how it affected Matchmaker and how it affected where mechs actually were placed. In solo queue, mechs were dropped, light mech, lance, heavies, mediums, and then finally assault lance. Whereas now, of course, they're all spread higgledy-piggledy all over the place. And that has completely changed the game way beyond any effect that the groups had, at least from my perspective. And that, again, is just the final piece of the homework that wasn't even necessarily discussed and hasn't been addressed.
Yeah, well, let's address it. We can. That's absolutely within the realm of possibility as far as changes, right? That's nothing super difficult. So, number one, new player experience talked about all the time. Because if we're, like you guys brought up in the last podcast, I only see really two main ways to bring people into this game, and that's going to be word of mouth. If we make positive changes, you guys get excited, the players get excited, they tell their friends that they knew played it, but they stopped playing it 2 years ago or whatever, and bring people back. I've gotten countless contact from people saying, basically, prove me wrong. I dare you. Do make these changes, and they're standing back and standing by or whatever. They're waiting for the changes, and so
those two things were, me just echoing what you said in your own podcast on No Guts, No Galaxy. But I still want to keep a focus, an arrow focus on finishing the homework. That PSR changes. We did actually have a post several months later saying, "Hey, here's how the PSR changes have happened." We were given some numbers, but there was not. That was nice for the community, but what we really sort of want is it would be nice to have a commitment a few months after a change has happened to look back and just do the final few touches, because that's the big issue with group queue and PSR, and a lot of these changes is that they are worked on for several weeks, and the big obvious problems that need a few months to come to the fore in the community's mind will never get addressed. And I feel that going forward really should be something that should be much more remembered and put on the table.
Yeah, and I feel like that applies to a lot of things. For example, putting out new maps. We put out, over the years, we put out a map. The map's decent, but it could use work and be fixed, but we kind of move on, and it's putting out another new map and another new map. And there's all these decent maps that we've already got out there that if we just did a little work, if we just did a little love, they could be great maps, like other ones that are favored in the community, like Rublight or Canyon or whatever. So I feel that in general applies to a lot of stuff, right? That we can put something out there, but then that follow-up is very important, because obviously you put something out there, you test drive it, you see the flaws, you see what's good, and then you want to go back and fix the flaws so that it's great. So I think that applies to the new player experience. I think that applies to the spawn points like you're talking about. All this stuff can be rehashed, and certainly the new players coming in at tier 3, that's an issue, and the community made that point abundantly clear. And so the suggestion is to drop them, to bring them in at 4.5 or 4.6 or whatever, and that's going to be a big part of the discussion going forward.
I think it's a great idea. And then also to kind of bounce off of your point you said earlier, is that to reach out to the community, be it from from social media or people on like Twitch or YouTube, and getting the the biggest excitement back up, which I think is a good way to actually touch on right now, is that as the group here in the podcast, what areas in the past did get you excited to begin to play this game and kept you in for 3 or 4 years?
Are you asking me, or are you asking?
Well, I'm actually asking the group. So Bob, so for instance, so I guess because as a content creator, what got you excited to play this game? Like basically you're at work and it's a very long, boring day, stocking shelves or whatever.
Yeah.
What made you be like, I want to get home to play Mechwarrior Online?
Well, like on my drives to and from work, which is about an hour and a half, I got all this time to think in my head, run over raccoons and skunks and stuff like that. But in general, though, BattleTech is just what I love. Basically, it's one of the things that, and then stories you can tell with the content. and also getting you guys to hang out with me and go, hey, I need your shot like this. I need you to jump at this location, and then, then I'll get the really good shot for it, everything. But the passion was making, he knows. But the passion was just actually just having fun at the game. And I think that's one of the things that I don't have a passion for like anymore. I play the game. I like the game. It's Mechwarrior. It's BattleTech. But it's just kind of like, I'm going through the paces. And then over a period of 8 years of making all the content, I haven't really made much content like anymore. Because I think I tapped that as far as getting the content out or funny things, skits, like, and plus whatever. Plus also the player base went down to what it was before to what it is now. And I think that if we could get the passion back into it, a lot more content creators will actually, because I think there's only like 3 or 4 that really make it all the time. Like Baradul, I think it is.
Baradul's still doing it.
Yeah. But he's
Really?
more,
still doing it.
Yeah, TTV.
TTV, yeah, he's still doing it.
But there's a couple people that they're like, I'm gonna make MWO for 1 day, like they used to make it for 4 days. Now they make it for 1, and then they're, he's doing other things now, like BattleTech and doing other stuff, like from HBS, and it saddens me because it's such a good community that I lost that drive to like go, I'm gonna make a video when I get home. This is what's gonna happen, type thing. Like, Large, I need you to be on at 4:00, be there or be square, type thing, and it's gone. But I still play the game like every so often, but not as much as I used to.
So, to roughly do a timeline in my own head, at least, there's a time MWO was PGI's only focus, so that every month or so, like we would have big changes. Suddenly skill tree, suddenly engine desync. We would have Solaris.
It was something new all the time.
Game, faction warfare, etc., etc. Obviously, then after that, we had a period of time where there was some support, that they would come back to the game, that they would add heat scale limit quirks. They would do things like the group merge, the PSR change, that there was some support. And for quite some time, for a year or so, it's been, just MWO and live support, no change, completely static.
Yeah.
And obviously, the point is that we're moving a bit more back to the olden days. I don't think it will jump all the way at all to PGI's sole focus. We're having to see what's the best we can get from the middle times of occasion. They spend a while to come out with just a couple of changes, key changes to the game, or changes to spawn points, weapon balance, quirks, etc., etc. And at least in those times, what I really liked was just the flavorful quirks the most. Gave me a reason to pick up like the 3 PPC Highlander 2C, for example. Just like, oh hey, that was a really mediocre variant, and now it actually has a purpose.
Yeah.
And the game being completely static, it was one of the things that really dragged at me, and I think a lot of people. Whereas when it was a little dynamic, when they were slowly patching up the game, or at least just slowly flexing on the game, it made it a lot more interesting.
Also too, like I think what you brought up is, damn it, I had it in my head. God damn it.
So like with the videos, we would have a new quirk, new quirk into the game, and we all try it out. We have a lance of that new mech, and that would be great video content. But when there's none of those quirks coming out, of course, there's none of that kind of video content to make.
It's kind of like YouTube and Twitch. You have to be consistent on getting videos out, your times and everything else. If you start dropping, which I noticed this myself when I used to do Star Trek Online, is I dropped for 2 years, and when I came back, it was like I was starting over, and no one watched, no one did anything until you build up that base again. And that's one thing that basically, like, I think PGI really needs to do is start getting that stuff out. Be excited. Be new things like Butter's talking about. Quirks. This mech now has a new paint job. Just whatever. It doesn't matter like what it is, as long as the community actually sees you doing something, which you're doing now, actually, which is really good. Is as long as see you doing something, then they'll come back, and then they'll come and go and enjoy the game again. I don't know. That's just
and I think I would like to follow up on this. Obviously, like considerably changing the game to make it feel somewhat different. If it's balance changes, new maps, new mechs, special quirks, stuff like that, is obviously something that gets us excited. For me personally, though, what I'm really missing, and what I'm really missing in my heart, are those times from like 3 years back when we had 12-man lobbies in Discord, and that's for me the main thing. Like, people left over time, and it's been quiet in our voice comms. And
Yeah.
I think that's mostly the reason why I'm focusing so much on the new player experience, because I like to get people into BattleTech. I'm a diehard BattleTech fan, and I talk a lot about BattleTech, as anyone around me can vouch for. So I would love to bring more people into Mechwarrior Online, but I've noticed anytime I've tried, I've struggled.
Mhm.
And that's the main reason why I'm focusing so much on new play experience. And I'm hoping that maybe later on in the podcast we can touch on some ideas
Yeah,
that we had about that.
we're kind of the shadow off of Ian there. Yeah, like I'm the same way where I think now, I mean, I want to focus on new player experience for sure. Because like I think a good scenario is that, I have one friend close to home who's been trying to get into Mechwarrior Online. He's maybe played 5 hours of the game. But it's one of those things where, as because there is no marketing, the player base has kind of become that marketing source in a sense. So he'll come to me and be like, "Oh, well, there's this game MechWarrior Online you play. What can you tell me about it in its current state?" kind of thing. Well, 2 or 3 years ago, I could go, "Oh, well, there's like all these new mechs. These mechs have these really interesting quirks. They have these really good events like during Halloween. One of my favorite events in this game was the Halloween event. You would get so much free stuff, and as a new player, was fantastic. But then, as a new player, they would drop into tier 3, and then a few years back, if you were like in tier 1, you couldn't really match up with like a tier 3 person almost because of the bucket system, I think is what it was. But yeah, but
you couldn't form a group, 2-man group, because you'd be searching for an hour or two.
that was the big thing too. Yeah, is that prior, if it was just me and my one friend, we could not find a game. It was just so we would try to do like a sync drop, and that was like a half and half crapshoot kind of thing. Where I think that was the biggest part of when our group started to lose interest, actually, be it for worse or not, is that whenever we could not get a dedicated group because people were playing other games, Mech 5 came out, so people were playing Mech 5. But those who stayed on Mechwarrior Online, if they were going into like a group of like 3 or 5, they would just wait in the queue for 20 minutes. And
those old bucket systems.
And then let's say they wait 20 minutes, and then the game wouldn't be a good game, and then they're like, "Well, we just lost. Let's go ahead and search for another game for another half an hour." And then it would just be that like as opposed to like prior years, it would be back-to-back games, and it was just constant flow. But I think that's kind of like my long and skinny of it.
Yeah, there was also the grander another thing we should touch on, which was that it wasn't just getting new friends into the game, or necessarily having to wait too long for matches. Back in the day, we would have to still wait. During the peak times that we were playing the game, there were times we were stuck when waiting for 10 minutes or so for a match to actually happen. And we did have a dedicated crew, at least of 8 or so, that would always play. And you could find a match reasonably, at least for quite some time, with a crew of 8. But even so, we were losing those key members. We were losing interest in the game. And I think, partly, it's any game that goes on long enough, you're going to get very bored and used to it. But there was a long-term trend that we've talked about with the game, that sort of spark and flair that you could really show off to your friends and would share with your friends, and these things slowly faded over time with the successive changes to the game. And this, I think, was very well summed up by the video Mech the Dane a couple of years ago or so, the unfunding of MWO. That I think just all that, they always did 90% of the work, but there's always that key little part that undermine the experience. And a lot of the time, the direction of the patches and changes were to make the game much more bland and disinteresting. The times that we would go out with weird, wacky builds and things that that would be featured in the Beef videos or Lash's videos or many of our videos, they were all slowly nerfed or removed from the game entirely. Just that they lost their potency. And it's just not the same to get a group of 12 random idiots and bungle them in with brawlers, when brawlers are just so less effective. You just don't get as many wins as you used to.
Okay, let's switch this up, because now we got the past.
Are we getting echo, guys?
I don't know if we're getting echo or not. I don't know. It might be.
It's probably going to be from Ian's.
Okay.
All right.
Let's switch this up from the past, and let's hear from Daeron actually about the past, and then we'll go to the present. basically, and then go from there. Pretty much, because like I don't want to have the podcast of us beating up like PGI.
Yeah,
or
we don't want to
anything.
get because I feel like Darren's been here, been like
Yeah.
he just listening to us rant, and we are like
exactly.
on 20 minutes here, so let's not.
Yeah.
But
Just so
it's
you
just,
know, I'm totally okay with that. Again, a big part of my job right now is listening, so it's okay. I had no problem with anything we've done so far. As far as the past of this game for me, I've seen a lot of, obviously being here from the beginning, a lot of ups and downs, good things, bad things. I think we all have things about, at some point over the last 8 years where we had the most fun, right? And so in some way we all want to get back to that feeling again. But you brought up, you guys like wacky and crazy and things that are, not bland, so to speak, right? That's one of the challenges working with the community is there's such a wide variety of what people are looking for and what is creating that that experience, giving people that same feeling that you have. There's some people out there that it's the competitive side, obviously, right? And so in that situation, the blandness, I won't say is desirable, but a lot of the blandness I think happens because of balance, right? We're trying to create this perfectly balanced game.
It's never going to happen though.
And yeah, well, of course, it's never going to happen, but it's not. But it's something that we've always tried to get to. It's always like been a goalpost is this balance or whatever. I do think it's unachievable, but it's something that has always been worked towards. Now, I'm not a spreadsheets type guy, and I can see things a little bit easier, the big picture, step back, see it all. When it comes down to numbers, I think the community is going to do a lot better job than I am with crunching numbers and figuring all that out. People like Jay-Z and tons of others out there that know this stuff way more than I'm ever going to. And so I'm excited about utilizing the community in that way with the future. But again, talking about the past, there's just a big variety of players and what makes a great experience for them. It might be faction warfare. It might be crazy drops. You guys brought up, Matt Newman's proposal about doing, I personally think
I love that idea.
That is perfect. I mean, I would love that.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I think Matt is a genius. I love Matt. He is awesome. He comes up with just really good ideas, and I hope that that's something that the community pushes for is, his event queue or whatever. Of course, a big thing with moving forward, I feel, is simplifying the game and it not making it even more confusing. And that part of that is just
No, I would heavily disagree with that, just with what I was saying earlier, that people keep pushing for things to be made more and more bland and samey and balanced, but that's not fun. We keep hearing about, you're going to slightly tweak the numbers to make sure that all the mechs are on an equal playing field, but it's usually all those numbers are being tweaked down to being where it's all this bland, amorphous mess. I don't want it to all be simplified. The complexity of the game is, in fact, one of its strengths, and we should lean into that strength, at least for a little bit, because the balance of this game has constantly been pushed with the unfunding of MWO. It's constantly been tailored down, pulled back, pushed back, just always pushing us into a smaller and smaller, simpler box. I don't care about a simple box. It's boring. I care a box with lots of buttons on it and make different noises.
So what I'm referring to, I think, is when I say simplification, things like not having too many queues, like we were just talking about the event queue or whatever. One of the issues, obviously, I'll go back to even new player experience. New player experience to me is absolutely crucial. Like, it is one of the biggest issues, because the reason so many people that are currently playing bring up new player experience is because they want a bigger player base, right? A bigger player base is beneficial to everybody. And it's probably because they want to bring in their friends and they've recommended it and they come in. And one of the problems with new players is just the game is overwhelming. So when I say simplify, I don't mean simplify it to make it more boring. I'm saying more simplifying it to make it more fun. So for new players, so they don't come in and just go, you know what, I don't even understand what's going on here, I'm out of here. Avoiding those kind of reactions.
I think personally the key word should just be fun, that you pick up the game and it should be fun from the get-go. And part of that is, of course, not swarming lots of information at you. But the key word that you focused on until I brought it up was simplification and not fun. The game, it's a game. It should be about fun. And whilst fun is a kind of an amorphous term, it's hard to define down. At least with us, those of us who are used to the game, we know what are the key drives and interests in the game. And for me, the game isn't fun because it's simple. It's actually the complexity of the game that you want to get people into.
Well, I
Sure.
think maybe we to touch on that a little bit, and even to dive more into, especially with new player experience, is that we should probably get into the idea of the actual tutorial, because
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Could be before we dive into the new player experience, because I
Yeah,
think that's
sure.
kind of a big topic for all of us.
Yes.
I want to comment on the balance thing. So you
Hmm.
guys talked about the perfectly balanced game, which is never going to happen. The thing is, though, and this is something we've talked about in the First Circuit podcast in past episodes, I think we can all agree that Mechwarrior Online is fairly well balanced at this point, which,
Well,
in
yeah.
my opinion, might be one of its biggest issues right now. Because a perfectly balanced game will never have a need to change. And if a game never changes, it gets boring and stale, which is a reason why I actually like if something is unbalanced. If autocannons are overpowered, people are going to play autocannons, and that's going to change 2 months later when PGI is like, oh, autocannons a bit strong. Let's push lasers a bit, so they're fun. And this is something we've seen in the past where the game meta has been constantly changing and the game has been evolving. And yeah, it never was really balanced during those times. There were always subpar and overpowered weapon systems. Like I remember the Piranha originally. I remember the Kodiak 3. And obviously that's somewhat of an issue, but you do get the trade-off that the game evolves and changes and doesn't feel static the way it did in the past 2 years.
Well, I mean, it was static because of MechWarrior 5, basically, because they weren't, they left the lights on and no one was home.
Well, yeah, less.
yeah.
They were still doing quirks and things, but yeah,
Yeah.
less support.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean,
like
but I mean, but you get that when you have to work on a whole other game. I mean, it's, we kind of knew
Yeah,
that going
and
in. So
we all understand this, and I don't think we should
yeah,
really keep those last 2 years too much in our mind.
No.
But it is mostly down to balance. There weren't significant balance changes in part, I think at least. Darren, you can always correct me if I'm wrong, because PGI didn't really feel the need to change the balance that much because it was fine.
Well, I can say this. I've seen the data, and the game is absolutely at the most balanced point it's ever been in its history, okay? But on the same side...
What does that mean? Like,
it means that there's no outliers as far as mechs or weapon systems that
God's PPCs
are consistently more effective or whatever. So all the numbers have kind of flattened. They flatten the curve, right? Okay, so and so more than ever in its history, it's balanced. However, if it's not fun,
really love
what's
to see those
the
numbers,
point?
Okay, and I'll do what I can to get those numbers out to you, potentially this next week. But that being said, if it's not fun, what's the freaking point, right? So the game could die in a year, but hey, it's the most balanced it's ever been. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? So this going to the community, and this could be a double-edged sword, right?
Oh yeah,
because it could totally succeed or it could totally fail. But now it's like I keep pointing out, I've been stating a few of my own opinions, but really, ultimately, my opinion doesn't mean crap, So it's really going to be, what does the community want to see changed? And hopefully that's making it more fun. That's our hope. That's, we had pillars when Matt and I first sat down talking about this. One was simplification, and it's not the simplification that you're thinking. It's just making it less confusing
I only
for
said
new players.
simplification because that was the key word you were calling
Right.
upon.
Yeah.
But the other word that went with that for us was making it more fun. So, again, this is just coming from us. That's not super important right now. What we're saying isn't super important. It's really what the community is going to come up with over the coming weeks that's more important. So, keep everything I say, take it with a grain of salt, right? Because ultimately, my opinion isn't going to matter that much in the end. I'm just here as a facilitator, understanding both the business side of it and the player side of it, and trying to make it all mesh into a plan going forward. But I absolutely agree that there's a lot of people out there that the complexity of Mechwarrior Online is its key selling point. Hey, I played EVE Online for 5 years. That was a huge learning curve. There were memes about what kind of a learning curve that was. I love, the original DayZ when it was a mod.
Yeah.
I love really difficult confusing, got to do research to figure out type games. That's my personal, personality and the kind of stuff I like. But I'm also aware that the MechWarrior community is vast. And in fact, one of the largest groups of people that are kind of untapped for their opinions are the largest segment of players aren't watching podcasts, aren't logging onto the forums, aren't watching the Twitter feeds. They just log in, play the game, and get out. And so we're trying to figure out how to tap those people as well, like via emails, your email list, or when you log into the game, just a simple pop-up that says, do you like this better or do you like this better? So we can start gathering information from that group of people. We're going to try and use as many resources as possible.
Pop-up for service is something we've talked about. Great idea.
Yeah, so it's, the community, one of the things I love about it is that it is so vast and there are so many different opinions and what makes the game fun for each person. So it's going to be a significant challenge to do what we're doing here, and I recognize that for sure. But I also am super pumped and excited for what the possibilities are. And so I'll stop now because I'll save the possibilities for when we start talking future. But
that's cool.
All right.
I have a question for Darren, actually. I have one question for Darren. Now we talked about fun. Okay, fun is fine. We want to have the, one event where you have no gravity, where you just kind of, every time you shoot, you flip around or like whatever, basically. Okay, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. That's cool for the general aspect. Now for the lore aspect, because I know like you're part of lore, Ian's part of lore. I know Ian's like shaking his head. Fun is cool, but once you get to a certain point of silliness, like say PPCs that go around corners, autocannon rounds that shoot from all across the map, type of stuff, what's the fun aspect of what you guys are thinking of? Like this might be for the like future part type thing, but there's a point you have to get to the lore aspect to, and then fun in itself. Like what is the dynamic of how you guys think about that?
Like, how does lore apply to making the game more fun? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, basically. Like a lot of people, like I know myself. It's like I like to have more lore compared to anything else. You know me. I love lore. I love the aspect of the backgrounds. That kind of stuff. Shut up, Ian. I can see your face. But I want to have that, but also I want to have fun. But what is that balance? What would they be that balance for PGI?
This is one of the points I want to bring about the past, that there is a certain Mech Dad audience who have played the previous games and stuff. They love talking about the lore. We had a whole huge big update about the faction warfare thing, which of course, actually just made the game worse. Ultimately, it was a long, slow-moving train wreck. And the games, the fundamental core pillars of the game, if I were to define them, would never really revolve around the lore. It's worth touching on the
lore.
So
you guys made my point, didn't you? How you have
conflicting interests.
Yeah. It's out of my hands to some extent, right? Like the community is going to have to make this consensus, and you guys are going to be button heads. It's going to be like, I want lore, I want fun, and and how do we blend those together? It's a difficult question. It's a difficult task. My feeling about lore, of course, I bought Battle Droids in 1984, as everybody knows, or some people know. I see you have that behind you, by the way, BattleTech, a game of urban mech combat. But it's important to me too, right? I care about lore. I've read the books, certain, probably 20 to 30 novels over and over and over again. Because I don't like jihad, but it's just personal. That's my personal thing.
Yeah. So when we're talking about lore, you go to the books, you go to the old single player games and stuff. You don't go to MWO.
So here's a little bit of my opinion and my feelings on this. It's difficult, right? Because you can't make everybody happy.
No.
Russ has kind of come to me and said, Mechwarrior 5 is really where the lore is going to be, the economy is going to be, the that kind of experience, where Mechwarrior 5 is more, or Mechwarrior Online is more focused on just the multiplayer experience, the PvP, right? So it doesn't mean like we're like, this is multiplayer or this is PvP, so therefore don't put any lore into it. Hell, again, we're moving forward based on what the community wants. So if the community wants Easter eggs and more lore stuff in the maps and that get fixed or get created in the future, then that's up to the community to say that's what we want. And I'm totally open to that. Am I going to be like, lore, get that lore out of my MechWarrior Online. Hell no, I love it too, you know. But the question is, how do we bring more lore into MechWarrior Online to where it's worth putting that effort into? It's making it more fun. I'm open to everything, man. Like, I'm totally open to more lore.
I would say, at least from all the time and effort that's been put into MWO, all the time and effort that's put into Mechwarrior 5, it's kind of clear that PGI are not necessarily the best at providing lore. They can fit the BattleTech aesthetic, and that.
Hey, they won an award for
that story.
Yeah.
I know. But
I'm I'm joking.
No, I know. But and that's actually why, like, why I enjoy coming on this podcast, because we do, even though within our own host base, we have very differing opinions when it comes to what makes a game good. So
this is kind of what I quickly wanted to add on, because as Darren, you noticed, like Bob is on the one spectrum, Bite is on the complete other spectrum. I'm kind of leaning towards Bob's side. I think Lars is kind of leaning towards Bite's side. Even with this kind of a diverse group, like just between us four, we've kind of come to the conclusion, and I'm hoping that the community as a whole can kind of come to the same conclusion, that lore has a big place in any Mechwarrior title, obviously, but the main focus of a first-person shooter should be the fun of the gameplay. You can put a lore in the mech lab, you can put a little bit of lore in Easter eggs, but if the game isn't fun, all that lore doesn't mean anything.
Well, the lore, like the lore aspect, I'm not talking about you have to change a game. You just put a little, like little thing that awesome was built here, blah blah blah, little pop up that comes up when you go look up the mech. I'm not talking about completely fundamentally change, like the PPC can only fire at this and that's it, type thing. It just has to be something that puts lore into the game.
Rambling is a waste of time.
Perfect, Biter, come on.
The thing is, this is MechWarrior Online is not the tabletop game. I think we have a contingent out there that is trying to translate the tabletop into MechWarrior Online. I think that's an absolutely absurd and impossible task. MechWarrior Online is not the tabletop game.
No, it's not.
But at the same time, what we can do to reach out to that group of people is respect the lore. We're not going to shit on the lore. We're not going to, we're not going to disrespect the thing that brings a lot of people to the table, which is that.
Just buff this guy.
Look at that.
I know.
I got my package, man. I got my 4 favorite minis.
I touched on, at least, that PGI can do the theme and feel of BattleTech. Like they haven't thrown in giant biological monsters that you fight.
No, and we're not going to.
Please don't.
No birds in BattleTech.
But I think probably the biggest thing that Mechwarrior has done to do lore is that, I don't do a lot of lore. I actually came in during when Dark Age came out. That's when I began buying Mechwarrior stuff. Is when the little click pieces come out. My desk is actually covered in them. But I think it would just be really cool is that the things they've done very well from a lore point is that they've included for example, putting in before an event or before a mech would come out, for example, the Roughneck was not based in lore, but they had a really good 1-page storyline about the mech and the pilot.
Let's use
awesome.
the Sun Spider, please.
That's Roughneck was fine. The Roughneck was fine.
But, or all the cockpit items that are flavor Easter eggs, those are really good. I know Bob and I have ranted for months and years about faction warfare, the planets. There's no descriptions.
Yeah, I actually put
any of the planets.
I talked to Paul. I talked to Paul about doing it, and I was doing it for a while, putting the planet descriptions as best I can from Sarna for a little bit, all the major planets I did. But I got to a certain point where it's oh my god, I just lost that passion. Like I was talking before, but when I was doing that, I was having a blast just typing the planets and putting the descriptions, because it doesn't have any descriptions. That's my biggest thing about faction warfare. I mean, you're fighting for 2-kid, but there's planet description not named, type thing. You're just why am I fighting for it?
I think a lot of the fun came from it's not number based, and it's not going to change the gameplay, but it's the flavor.
I think you can totally just use numbers to reinforce the feel of the game. So in the past, they came out with the Hunchback, and the one with that starts with an AC 20, they give it really strong AC 20 quirks. This meant that Well, if you take that
Yeah.
Hunchback, you're
Yeah.
taking it probably for the AC-20. You can
Mhm.
put other things on it, but it had a role within the game. Of course, over time, they nerfed those AC-20 quirks. Oh no, oh, it might be a little interesting and fun, so they nerfed it. And think of the newest mech packs. I mean, those came out a while ago, but you get, something like the Dervish, and there'll be one with 5% missile velocity. Oh, that's really distinct to
Can I
its
speak on
starting
that real
loadout.
quick?
Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
So when we did the quirks, Phil was a major, or Sean Lang was a major component in the quirk system. I enjoyed him as well, but we got a lot of kickback from the community regarding the quirks because number one, there was a contingent of people that loved the quirks because it changed it up, right? And you could, for example, with the Hunchback or the Awesome with the PPCs or whatever, you could play it like you couldn't play it before, and it made it fun. However, there was a lot of people that were pissed off because they felt like we were pigeonholing them in a direction. Like, if you're going to take the 4G, you have to do an AC-20, otherwise you're not taking advantage of the quirks that it had. And so they felt like they were forced to do an AC-20 with the 4G when maybe they didn't want it. Maybe they wanted to do an AC-10 and whatever, a different loadout. And so there were those people that got mad about the quirks. So that's my point, is that it's not...
Yeah. But that was all played into, from our perspective, the reason why a lot of us stopped playing the game was simply the game was being made less fun.
Yep, absolutely. That's it. And I, I've heard the term for years, the unfunning of Mechwarrior, and I understand that. And so again, I hope we as the community and as PGI, we can find a path forward that's going to benefit the largest group of people. But I would love to touch, if you don't mind, moving a little bit into the future of Mechwarrior.
Yeah, so just
Okay.
we'll move on to the present. We went
'cause
past, present, and
we've
future.
spent a lot of time
Yeah,
on just
yep,
other
yep, yep.
things bouncing around there. So
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
Okay,
we
so
should try to
let's
move it.
talk about the present, and I'll talk about
Well,
what
I want to just round up my
Go
thoughts
for
on
it.
the past, which was just simply, very briefly, it's that whenever PGI does changes, they do 90% of them, and there's always a key things that they leave out. There is the fact that they will listen to parts of the community that, like with lore, will lead us to just go around in circles and waste time, and in fact make the game worse ultimately. They listen to the wrong people. And then finally, just the overall trend within either the PGI team or from what the community says is the unfunding and blandening of MWO over time, which drives away a lot of community members because everything is now, according to some vague stats that we never have seen after all these years, are balanced.
Okay, so so totally agree. So now moving forward, it's going to be important for the community to keep me accountable, and I think that follow-up is essential. Two things are important: just constant communication and follow-up. But the follow-up is going to be on on what the community comes up with, right? We're following up basically on whatever you come up with, whatever we implement. We test it for weeks, months, and then we go, okay, these changes need to be made. We follow up and fix stuff instead of moving on and forgetting about what we put in and it's not working, but who cares? Here's a new shiny map. It's going to be, I think the follow-up is important. In fact, more than seeing new things, what I want to see personally, and again, everything I say with a grain of salt, because it's not really going to matter what I say, but I want to see everything that we have in the game already polished. I want to see everything we have in the game already fixed and made better, because I think we have so many assets. Would a new map be cool? Sure. But also fixing 30 maps that are already out there would be even cooler, in my opinion, right?
Oh, yeah,
especially
definitely.
since most of us have been playing the game for years, and it would have a big impact on us. But anyway, in terms of where we are now, and then we can move into the future, I had the meeting with Russ and Matt this last week. I presented them basically with a rough breakdown of all, categorized all the stuff that was suggested and sent in to me. And now what we're doing is forming a rough outline based on that. We can see what was, brought up the most, categorized, put into, quality of life, low-hanging fruit type stuff, new player experience type stuff, and big things that could come in the future. And so I'll be bringing that to the community this coming week. First, I'm having another meeting with Matt and Russ to talk about it and make sure, okay, we're all in agreement here. This looks good. Then I'll make a forum post. I'll post all that up there. We can start discussing it and tearing down the different things. We'll have roundtable meetings. We're going to bring devs in to do technical reviews and say, okay, this can be done in this amount of time. This is who you'll need to hire or bring in from another department to make these things happen. Basically, establish a team based around what we're doing. That was one of the exciting things from the meeting, is that we already started talking about, okay, new hires and how big of a team will you need, how many engineers, how many 3D modelers, animators, whatever, to make these things possible. So already, we're talking about when the rubber meets the road and making these things happen. So it was a really positive meeting for me. I got really pumped. There was nothing that I showed from the community that Russ said, oh, that can't happen, or that's not going to happen at all. In fact, he was pleasantly surprised with what the community brought up. I think he was expecting more pipe dreams, and like, for example, not many people brought up building it in Unreal 4. I think people got the idea that was a monumental task and wasn't a big reality. Now, again, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but making that happen is a huge challenge. But anyway, my point is, the stuff that was brought up is all very doable. And I think that's what's exciting to me, is that we can totally make this happen. So right now, where we're at is we had a great meeting talking about the stuff that the community brought to the table. Now, this next week, we're going to present that stuff, a rough outline. Then we're going to start talking about it, both with the community and with the engineers and all the technical side of it, so that we can establish an understanding between. Basically, I'll be bridging that gap, right, between the developers and the community, so that you guys understand. We can get the data to you. We can get the numbers to you. When we say it's the most balanced it's ever been, we'll present that so you understand what that means. And so it's all going to be about that, just complete, open communication, transparency. To me, this is an opportunity, right? Like, this game's been out for a long time, but all of a sudden we've been given an opportunity to make it last for another 4 or 5 years. And why not, at this point, again, like I said, yeah, we could die next year and it's the most balanced it's ever been. Is that going to make any Mechwarrior online fan happy? No, because the game's gone, right? And so I feel like right now we have this amazing opportunity to take this franchise and this game that's still 10,000 people a day, 40,000 people a month are playing, and potentially grow that again, so that it has another 4 or 5 years of fun that, we didn't expect, and potentially we could extend the license again. So, and which opens up all kinds of other possibilities. So that's where we're at today, is that this coming week, there'll be more communication, there'll be more information out there.
See, like a hand.
Yes,
fine.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, like, what, if you could talk about what type of, not the pipe dreams, but just like a generalization, well, not a generalization, but what are some of the ideas you're going to be presenting to Russ in the following weeks? Basically, what have you kind of thought of specifically?
Oh, you want actual information?
Well, just
I'm
one or
joking.
two things. Just one or two things.
I'm curious. A way to phrase this question would be something along the lines: yeah, there's like hundreds, thousands of ideas from the community, but what are the most prominent ones you have presented?
My wife's laughing at me now for some reason.
I would say, what ideas have stuck the most? I would say in meetings, if you're able to share that information.
Sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's nothing I'm not wanting to share. So it's a lot of information, but like some obvious ones is reducing the skill tree or redoing the skill system or whatever. People have talked about changing it back to the old system. People have talked about cutting the skill tree down by 50%, what we currently have. But obviously the skill tree is a topic, right? And so again, it's up to you guys where you want to go with that. But skill tree is a big one, and the grind for people, and that a lot of these blend in with other things, right? So the skill tree is also part of the new player experience, because the new player gets a new mech, and it takes them 200 matches to get that mech skilled up before they're even, before they can be competitive with people that have been playing it for years. That's an issue, right? New player experience.
Same for freaking consumables, pay to win nonsense.
Yeah, and so you guys touched on some pay to win stuff in the last episode. I think you guys were kind of, I forgot who it was, but somebody
we've always been opining against or having issues with the consumables, because of course they take C-bills away from newer players, so it's only really the people who've been around for a while. It's one of the most powerful parts of the skill tree. The consumables often very much undermine a lot of the mechanics of the game. So, there's all this stuff about weapon balance and heat management. Oh, boop, I've just undone all of that, mechanics for, a good minute or so with the cool shot. Oh,
right.
well, we need light fast mechs to run around. Well, we got a UAV. Boop. I could just instantly spot all of them for no risk to myself. That's lovely. And oh, look, there's a bunch of defenders there trying to stop the NASCAR. Boop, you idiots, you stood still and together.
Yeah.
Well, that's up to you guys to fix, right?
Yeah.
So come up with a solution and let's make it happen. So skill tree, big one.
Consumables.
Yep, good.
Grind is one.
Yeah.
Super simple ones like just removing the time of day change to matches, because I guess I don't experience frames hit.
Not everyone
myself.
is on great PCs. And the
Yeah,
game is
so
totally
certainly that affects some people. That seems to me like just a no-brainer. We could do that in a day.
Change the dropship smoke. Get rid of that. Oh my god.
All this stuff is possible, man.
Yeah.
Removing the 2-minute requirement for the reconnection. Mech Lab explaining heat management better, or the values not representing correctly. Removing torso heat spike. Simplifying the command wheel. More private lobby functionality. The 8v8's been brought up, but I'm not sold on that being a simple. I think that's very divisive. There's a lot of people that want to keep it 12v12 and a lot of people that want 8v8. So that's a topic to be discussed. Spawn point fixes, easy fix, obviously,
one,
right?
Yeah.
But also that could be altered by maps being altered. So, but anyway, spawn points is a big one, and I think an easy one. Matchmaker balancing better, balancing by distributing players by skill more evenly. Removing the C-bill recruit cost for joining
I forgot
units.
that was even there.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Mech mobility, revisiting the quirks like you guys brought up. A lot of people want quirks back. Rescale, huge one, right? So rescale to me is one of those. This may not be an easy thing. This might move to a bigger update thing, but rescale is a weird topic, because there's volumetric rescale, but as Sean Lang, Phil, he was a tanker, and he could take 2 A1 Abrams tanks, put them side by side, and one could be 30 tons heavier than the other, but it looks exactly the same because there's all kinds of variables, right? It could be the armor thickness, it could be the equipment it's carrying. And so I feel, and I don't know how the community is going to feel, but I feel like rescale needs to not be volumetric, but it needs to be rescaled by fun. What's going to make the game more fun? Because if you can have 2 tanks that look exactly the same, but they're literally 30 tons difference, then it's, saying it needs to be this big because of the tonnage doesn't really make sense. So I feel like the rescaling needs to be done by what size does this mech need to be in order to be fun, And so rescale is a big issue. I have no idea how that's going to work itself out and what's going to happen, but obviously how that can affect the game is huge. I mean, that could be one of the biggest impacts on the game from all these things, because if you just think about it, if all the mechs kind of got a little bit smaller, especially like the assaults and so forth. So I don't know. We'll see. Rescale is a big one though. Weapon balance, people just basically want another overhaul of weapon balance, which I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, the data is showing that it's the most balanced it's ever been. So, maybe it's fuck the data and go with quirks again. Who knows? And then also armor balance, things like Jenner, Stalker, Jaeger, Rifleman arms, the armor balance on that or whatever. New player experience, huge. It could be, from starting cadets at a lower tier, like 4.5, 4.75 were both recommended from the comp scene. I don't know what everybody else is going to say. Maybe it needs to be 5.
It's as I said when it came out, that the way it's been made is that it's always an equal gain and loss, and so that's why everyone had to be instantly put in the center. A way that it could have done, but obviously that was harder to implement, is you make the sides slippery, such that if you're in tier 5, it's easier to gain match score. If you're in tier 1, it's harder to gain match score and it's easier to lose it, etc., etc.
Come up with the plan. Let's figure that out. I definitely agree. Like, again, bringing up Phil, he's an amazing player. He's absolutely a top tier player, and he's destroying cadets. Like he'll get out there in a match and he just feels guilty, because these guys, they just turn around and look at him and then they're dead and they have no idea what just happened. That's a huge impact to our new player experience. We don't want, I liken it to other games. I'd go play Battlefield or something like that. And I always got frustrated with the games where the new player is always at a fucking disadvantage. And I'm sorry if I'm swearing and you guys don't do that.
It's always wide open here. It's
I
fine.
curse
We
like a
fucking
sailor,
swear all
but-
the time, so it's cool.
I'm
Thank you.
honestly. No.
But I hate getting in games where I'm basically punished for being new. You're going up against people that have been playing for months and they've leveled up all their gear. They have the best gear. They have the best abilities. And that's who I'm going up against as a new player. How do I stand a chance, And what's going to be the fun in that to make me stick around? So I think that's a big issue that we have with Mechwarrior Online is we want to make that experience for them as positive as possible. Some more ways that I think we can improve the new player experience is making very specific new player tutorials that are easily accessible. And I'm not talking about the in-game tutorial. I'm talking about video tutorials that are specifically made for, top 10 things I wish I knew when I first started playing MWO, or it could be basic skills gameplay, it could be advanced skills gameplay, it could be basic mech building, it could be basic skill tree, all these things that are easily accessible. So you can click on something even in the game that will pop you out to see the videos or whatever, so that new players have some idea that, again, that can just help towards that goal.
That'd be great.
And so you think about basically as far as those video rise, I know like as a video content creator, like we did, like TTB and like BrioS and everyone else did those types of videos, but they change. Like the skill tree.
Well, certainly they
changed.
change with time, but also how are these new players going to really find those?
So the PGI done videos, correct?
Well, it could be a combination of us doing some videos and making them accessible, but absolutely working with content creators like yourselves to make your videos that are that apply to this as easily accessible. So making some section maybe on the MWO Mercs website where new players can go and get a whole bunch of videos from content creators.
That's a good idea.
Anything to give more access to that information, right? So like I said, hey, I've always loved playing games like EVE Online where I have to go and do research for an hour before I can even take my first ship out. That's me, but there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. And so we want to make it as easy for the mass amount of people as possible. The other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to make the current Mechwarrior 5 Discord channel just a Mechwarrior channel. So we're going to have that's going to be Mechwarrior Online as well as Mechwarrior 5, so we can have more of a community, more discussion, more threads for new players, a place for them to go to get help from the community, which we have an awesome community that is absolutely helpful. So might as well take advantage of that. We're going to be continuing with the wiki and opening it up more so that there can be more editors and so that can be updated and be more active. A unit recruitment chat tab in game has been brought up. And then also a big one, updating the trial mechs. Jay-Z offered to, so hell yeah, why not take advantage of that? That's going to be
please make them skilled.
Yes,
Make
please.
them skilled, because that is the biggest thing. Is that again, you walk in, it's an unskilled mech. You're fighting people who have a fully skilled mech. You're brand new. It's like.
I know.
It feels like you're like as a new player, you're just getting.
You're cannon fodder, right? That's all you are.
Really you're very much cannon fodder.
Your kills.
So I'm totally aware of that. PGI is totally aware of that. It's up to us now to come up with a plan to combat all that stuff. So I mean, that's just a basic overview of the new player experience type stuff. There's more, and there can be absolutely more added to that. Some major updates that were brought up is things like Solaris and faction play. Do they need to be in the game 24/7? Can we move it to more of an event-based thing to where, hey, this next weekend it's going to be Solaris weekend, or it's going to be faction warfare week, or whatever? Can we move it to a timed thing that does two things? One is it makes it kind of more of a special event, and number two is it fills that queue up more because it's not around 24/7. Like basically my thought process on this is it would be way better to have a temporary faction warfare queue that is filled rather than having one that's open 24/7 and has nobody in it. Now, this is a contentious topic because there's people out there that faction warfare is all they care about. And so, again, it's not my ultimate choice, but that's stuff that's out there. Is that obviously we have issues with Solaris and faction warfare. How do we fix them? So, that's on the table. A big one is map updates. And so this could be like, here's in topics in terms of maps, what I would love to see happen Russ is big on new maps, and so, which I understand. New content absolutely gives you significant engagement. Anything new coming out, people get excited about. It's just human nature. But like I said before, rather than new maps coming out, I'd way rather see our old maps fixed and made better and more fun and more, balanced and all that stuff, because that just makes you don't spend all your time on one or two new maps. You spend all your time on all the maps. So let's fix all the maps. But what I would love to see,
way more
As
cost
long as you keep the cave this time.
Keep
Yes.
the cave.
keep the cave, keep the cave. So what I would love to see happen with a map, though, and this would be unprecedented, and this, so a lot of people have been over the years saying, let the community design maps. Now, there's a problem with that, which is actually having the community build it within CryEngine and deliver a finished product to us is probably not going to happen. But what we can do is from day one, from conception, have the community involved every step of the way. They let's say the community says we want Thunder Rift. It could be anything. I just pulled that out of my ass, right? But it could be anything. The community says we want this map from day one. Let them be involved in coming up with the concept, coming up with the look, coming up with the design, coming up with the Easter eggs, coming up with everything. You were talking about lore. Then have the community build a map and put the lore on it. It's up to the community from beginning to end to have this map designed. Of course, it'd be
to build a map. And to build a map, would you just put it up as like a forum post, or because mainly if you do that, you're gonna get a flood of information if you just do a forum post. Because I've seen other companies get community input for a game, or for like comic books. They would almost go ahead and say, hey, we want to go ahead and we want to build this new thing. We want to build A. So it would almost be like, would it be better to like maybe have like a voting block of, hey, we want to build a map, choose one terrain from these 5 sections, like lava, desert, forest, and then like next section along with that terrain, do you want to see or basically how much of water do you want to see, like a lot, low, so I would say almost like if you are going to try to have community build maps, don't just say, hey, we want to build a map, and then just leave it wide open, because you're going to get so much information.
I would say in response to that, Lash, at least you have to, the way normally you want to do community things, it's like an art contest. Everyone sends in their own entries, and then they're able to pick and choose. That's the way you do, because otherwise, if you're like, oh, please name our new boat, they call it Boaty
McBoatface.
Going true democracy is just going to give you a very weird hodgepodge, which is the risk with community input.
That's the science behind this whole thing, and that's also what keeps me awake at night, is just like, because I know the weight of this task. Like, basically, Russ has said, here you have the future of Mechwarrior, also Mechwarrior 5
open item.
Yeah, and
that's
so
a lot of responsibility, man.
I'm stressed about it, because while on one hand I see all kinds of potential and I'm super pumped about it. I'm excited about the potential. Absolutely. I feel like we could do something really freaking cool here. We have access to all the tools that we need to do it. Now is the really hard part, which is coming to a consensus with the community that actually makes sense on every level, including the business side. So it's like I said before, it's a monumental task, and that the science of trying to filter the community input is extremely difficult. But we'll figure that out. We will figure out how to get through this process. Honestly, as far as like building a map, I haven't thought that completely through on how I'm going to.
But I like the idea, though. I really like the idea of having
it's
some
what we
community
talked about
input.
before with having a community pipeline for mechs and maps.
Which
Those are
is
the
what
two
Daeron's
biggest
doing,
effects on the game.
And also, so apply that to the mechs as well, right? So like, there's obviously, you're going to have people saying, I want the Mackie, or these going to be these outliers. But really, this is an opportunity. Okay, so think about all the last years, the last 8 years, where it was always, these are the new mechs coming out, like it or not. Now we have the opportunity to go, okay, well, what's not in the game? What would be the best mech to bring in, or the best 4 mechs to bring in right now that will have the most impact, that'll bring us something that we don't already have? Like, we can really science the crap out of this to bring in mechs that are actually they make a difference. People are like, wow, this is better than just having another version of this mech that can do this thing. You know,
Yeah.
we
That
basically will
be
have the
way
ability
more
to.
easy do if you undo the unfunding of MWO, of course, because
You mean if you do the unfunding of MWO?
Yeah, it's community driven. So,
Yes.
but yeah, but it definitely is one of those things where like I think if you were to say like, hey, we want to release 4 mechs next year, I'm just pulling a number out of my butt on this one, honestly. But it's
well,
like, hey, like
ultimately,
but
just
no,
on
but
that response,
yeah,
I'm just one person, and ultimately, I am
yes,
outcrowded by the large portion of the community who often will push for things like the boring down of the quirks, and their chorus of voices are much more, going straight to PGI's ear than anything I will ever say. So I can
No,
try.
that's not
Yeah.
true. I've been okay. I've watched your guys' podcast. Had people, their entire unit got together and had a stream and discussed stuff. 2.5 hours. Here it is. This is 30 people's thoughts. I've had basically it looked like dissertations sent in from somebody that is 30 pages long, full of numbers and decimal points. And I've read everything that's come in. So to this point, I'm listening to everybody. Everybody's getting heard at the moment. That's why I've been insanely busy. My mind is mush right now from the last 2.5
yeah,
weeks.
and we could talk in circles because I know when you got a big thing like this, you could talk for hours and not
But
yeah.
But now moving forward, we have to come up with a method to filter everything and to figure out what weighs more than other information.
And this is kind of where I was holding my tongue the whole time because I would like to,
I
like,
saw
we
your
can talk
hand,
about
so.
specific
Yeah.
details a lot.
Yeah, just for me to continue my train of thought.
Poor Ian.
Because,
Wait, but hold on.
Let
Ian,
me-
Ian, no, let Ian
I'm
talk.
not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere, guys. So
Biter, we'll get you
everybody
next, man.
take
Okay.
your time.
Yeah, but Ian, but please finish your thought because you've been there doing this for the past half an hour.
Yeah, I
Please
know.
finish your
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I've
So-
also.
So basically, I have 2 questions that are focused on the near future, Darren, that you may or may not be able to answer that kind of go along with a lot of things that have been discussed in the past few minutes. First thing, feedback tool. Something that has been asked, is the forum still the main feedback tool, or are you planning on utilizing something else for where maybe people can submit? Maybe the forum could get an update so we can sort by likes and like YouTube comments and actually see what is the most voted suggestion, stuff
Good
like
question.
that. Anything planned for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the forum needs to be one of the main tools for feedback, right? Because if you're not a part of the community, if you're not watching streams, if you're not listening to podcasts or watching podcasts, that's going to be the kind of the default place any player would go to get news on the game is going to be the forum. So I'm absolutely going to like I said, Monday I'll be starting a new thread, which will be the information that I'm disseminating and this is what we're working on type thing. And so discussion will take place there. But then when we get further into it and like we're talking about new player experience, I'll start a new player experience thread, and that'll be a source of discussion. But also I'm going to be hoping to do roundtables and other methods of communicating with using our email list, pop-ups in the game, like I mentioned. We're going to look for every way to gather that information as possible. But yeah, you're touching on a critical element, which is weighing that information and figuring out how to apply it. And so that's kind of still in the works.
Yeah, so very specific suggestion from us would be for the forum, enable sorting options for follow-up posts by likes and by date, so you can revert the order. You want to see what are the most voted comments and what are the newest ideas. And I feel like that's something that the forum has always been missing, because the like feature is kind of just, it's there and no one really cares
for
too much.
popularity. Look at 14 people
Yeah.
liked me. Yeah, I just took that note and I'll talk to our web developer and see if that's something we can implement.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So that would be one of the things for the near future for me. How do you better collect feedback than you can right now? And the other thing that's kind of going about an hour back, how difficult is it to change numbers? How difficult is it to just say, okay, we're gonna buff Narc and lower the cooldown to half a second and see what's going to happen, and let it run for a week, and after a week we're gonna revert it and see what happens? How difficult would that be?
Okay, now remind me what was I just about to answer?
Okay,
So
so
do your question again, and that will flow.
you did a great job with the group merge thing where you said we're going to test it for 4 weeks, and I would love to see more like this in the future, and specifically playing around with numbers. Say Bida has a huge fetish for narc beacons. Could you do something like, we're just going to lower the cooldown on narcs to half a second, something that's probably a bit ridiculous, let it go for a week, and see whether it changed in one or the other direction? Is that something you could do easily?
So obviously, I'm not an engineer, but absolutely, numbers are just numbers, right? So you just, my understanding, working with PGI for the last 8 years, that kind of stuff is literally going in and changing a number. So,
kind of follow up. With easy and difficult, I don't specifically just mean changing numbers because that's just a number, but more like for a player, is it something that can be done server side? Does it require server downtime? Does it require a download? Is it a big download, a small download, stuff like that? Do you have any insights?
I would say that it's probably going to require server downtime, but not any significant amount. I mean, it's literally probably some kind of, just
update or something.
The hot fixes, however small, always had to be with a little bit of downtime, and the same for any of their monthly patches. They always did a bit of downtime.
I'm sure it's server side. But again, I'm not an engineer. But my experience is that most of these things take just shutting off, upload, shutting it back on, or turning it back on. So stuff like that should be simple, and it could be a great way to test stuff. Like there's nothing keeping us from trying something for a month or whatever, or 2 weeks, like you said.
Okay.
On
so
a little
in that case,
side
I'm
on that.
by the just one more minute. I'm gonna quickly end everything we've talked about like an hour ago, and I just want to repeat that I'm worried if you let the community put together numbers that they might be perfect numbers. So that's kind of why I'm pushing one step at a time, and maybe overdo some things on purpose. Just keep it a bit dynamic. Just as a suggestion of
I
decide.
I understand so-called spreadsheet warriors, right? But ultimately, like we said, this is not the tabletop, and so we want the experience, right? So regardless what the numbers say, are we dropping in these matches, and are we having a good time? And I think that should ultimately be the goal. I think numbers are important. I totally appreciate the people that can crunch the numbers and get down to 10 decimal points on everything. They're far better mathematicians than I am, but ultimately, I think what's going to be the most important thing is the experience and having a good time.
Okay, that is really good to hear. So, Bida, I'm sorry.
Bida.
I was just going to ask along the sideline of, we can change values, but what about like adding new equipment to the game, variations of equipment to the game? Because, what we had suggested, the ways to reinvigorate the game, new mechs, new maps, sure, but also new weapons.
Ooh,
you don't have to go crazy with, super tech. You could have different duration for lasers, stream SRMs, just like what you have in Mechwarrior 5. How much more work, though, is it to put those into the game?
I can't tell you like specifics, but what I can tell you is that absolutely that's on the table. We can add more equipment. We can add more weapons. It's up to the community on what they want. We all know what's available out there, or we can at least find out what's available in terms of equipment and weapons by just going to Sarna. So, look what's out there. Is there something we want to bring in? Is it going to be worthwhile? That's the thing, is the community is going to have to, this is something that's on my mind a lot, is that we kind of have one shot at this, right? Like, if we can't attempt to do this and in 6 months or a year from now go, oh man, we really fucked this up, let's try it again. This is kind of our one shot at making Mechwarrior Online viable and grow again for the next 4 to 5 years. So it's really important that we, as Piranha and as a community working together, come up with the best plan. So is our new weapons a part of that? Maybe. That's up to you guys. And that's the stuff that we're going to hash out really for the rest of this year into the holiday, is what are the changes we're going to make? How long are they going to take? What's the timeline? Let's build a roadmap around this stuff. And so, yeah, absolutely, that stuff's all on the table, and we'll see what happens over the coming weeks as far as prioritizing.
This is just my thought process tying together the things from before and the present. When I talk to a lot of people about, the MWO starting up support again, we're obviously actually already like a few weeks into the announcement and everything.
Yep.
But a lot of people are saying, well, all it is just more idle chit chat, and that, I'll wait and see until something actually happens. And they're saying that obviously because of our past experiences with PGI.
We've been burned before, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've been burned, but it's also just like nothing has happened. So it's just that you know that you're going to be sitting down and waiting for quite some time for the game to actually change. But quick, instant changes that the company could have done is said, all right, Matt, if you're interested, just go into the game and start fiddling around with some quirks, and we'll have that for a couple weeks time, and the game will actually change, just even in a small way. It's just changing numbers, but that presumably is many weeks down the line after lots of discussion with the community. There's not,
Well, that's
not any
the
impulse.
that's a test server. That's the public test server, right?
PTS.
Yeah, the PTS.
Well, no, that's what Ian was
No,
talking about.
no. Yeah, that's one of the main things we've talked about a lot, Bob. The test server does not
What's
really
currently
fulfill its
that?
purpose from the perspective of the community, because
But that
longer
could.
time,
Go ahead.
low player base, and 4v4 matches. So I
Yeah.
am heavily advocating for live tests that are with a strict time limit, and you commit to reverting the change afterwards until you have made a proper decision.
Oh, okay.
I think the
Just
most
like they
important
did
thing.
with the Q merge.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing with doing that will be communicating to the player
That's the
base that
biggest
these
one.
things are happening, so that there's not confusion and we don't drive people away from making crazy changes. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's essential.
Okay.
It's just that as it is right now, at least we're on a very slow moving train that might produce something eventually far down the line. But the big, as I said, with the 3 phases of the game thus far, we've been in the whole nothing's moved for a year or two period,
Yeah.
and that's
Yep.
really dull. The just even slight things moving period is a step up, and it's an improvement, and it's interesting. It's given us some reasons to get the ball rolling again, but we're not even doing that. It's all just chitter chat, all just don't worry, we'll talk.
Well, the communication
two-
was the main thing, though, that basically that PGI kind of failed on, like in the past. But that's in the past. Right now we got Darren. Basically, Darren's the community manager, and all he had to do was say, "Hey, Darren, can you come on, please?" And boom, it was like that. It was like, cool. Basically, that was really, really nice. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing, like right now. You're on the No Guts, No Galaxy podcast. You're talking to everybody. You're having communication with everybody. I mean, literally, you're getting probably flooded.
It's the fact you've been so open and you're
Yeah.
taking time. That has not happened much in the past, and I think that's actually a big step forward already.
Oh yeah, definitely, by far.
Yeah.
So 2 things. One is I'm not cheap, and so Russ is already, by hiring me, putting his money where his mouth is. Right? There's no. What's the point in paying me if there's not an end goal, right? So that's a good sign. Am I telling people to, hey, believe us because I'm hired? No, but that's a good sign, right? He's already putting money there. The other thing is, the way PGI works is, like you guys were talking in your last podcast about the loyalty mechs. Okay, so PGI is saying that they want to make all these changes and they want to make the game better, but the loyalty mechs. The thing is, that loyalty mech package was decided already months ago. We work at least 3 months ahead. So it's even with a medium-sized developer the size of Piranha Games, it's really hard to turn on a dime. Essentially, the whole pipeline is just so far out in advance that it's can be difficult, not impossible, to make immediate changes. But go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, like, in my head, I think Lars would like this contrast, is No Man's Sky developer has a very different approach to things. They're a small studio, they're very quiet, and then they just say, boom, update. And their updates are really well polished. For PGI, at least, if they do things themselves, it usually comes out very half-baked and it needs the community feedback. And so that's why, at least the last couple of updates, it's been really good when there's been all this conversation. But ideally, of course, Rush should just push some people towards, working on the game, and things should just come out rather than this whole very long, drawn-out feedback process.
Because it is very long and drawn out, which actually I kind of want to follow up with that and actually going more towards into our future branch of the podcast finally.
Go ahead.
Is that basically you're getting all this feedback right now from like us, the community, Twitter, Discord, forums, Reddit, everywhere. What is your current time frame, if you have one, of basically you say that yes, we're getting the feedback, but we want to make our first initial change from that feedback. Is it like 1 month from now, 2 months from now? Like I guess what
I thought it was like
what are we
3
looking
months.
for towards the future of like when are we going to see the first change from all the feedback? Do you think?
So here's the kind of the rough plan for the future, and this is from me. Like I said, this stuff hasn't been technically reviewed yet, right? So we're going to have engineers look at it and determine how much time and how much manpower each of these requests is going to take. But basically, where we're at now, I'll be, like I said, next week, or this coming week, be presenting a rough outline / business plan to Russ to make sure, basically get his approval, which I'm then going to present to the community so that we can start the discussion, to hash things out, to prioritize things, to come up with a business plan. And then it's going to be technically reviewed, it's going to be simultaneously technically reviewed so that we're dealing with all the information at the same time. One of the challenges is we've got to kind of do a lot of things at the same time. But what I would like to see is the rest of this year being finalizing the plan that we would then, in the beginning of the year, hit the ground running and be able to move into developing that. Now, that being said, there's some, what I, at this point, think are super easy changes that we could potentially make still this year. Like, for example, taking out the day-night cycle and various other really low-hanging fruit type items that we could do kind of instantly, right, over the next couple months. So we're evaluating that this coming week as well, the low-hanging fruit stuff, seeing if there's anything on that list that we can pick off and do right now. But in terms of the big plan, I don't know. It depends on what the community comes up with over the coming weeks, and it depends on the technical reviews, and and based on that, how big of a team are we applying to this, and then we'll get those answers, more. Yeah. Like, I don't know if we're talking the middle of next year for big updates. I don't know if we're talking, a year from now for the big updates. It depends on what those big updates are. It depends on what the technical reviews are. Depends on how big our team is.
You'll know more after a month more of talking.
Yeah,
absolutely. But you know what? That talking is super essential. I understand everybody's like, enough with the fucking talking. Let's make things happen. But then we run the risk of doing the same thing that we've done before, which is just making changes that
just because
we end up being wrong changes, right? Yeah. We want to make sure what we're doing at this point are the right things for the community and for the game to be more fun and to move forward. So, we're going to be trying to do as much as we can all the time. If we can bring in changes this year still, we're going to. We want to follow on the footsteps of the PSR changes and make more stuff like that happen without the negatives, because now we have more communication, now we have more transparency. Let's do more stuff like that as quickly as possible to show, basically to create goodwill, because I understand there being people out there going like, yeah, fool me once, right? And so I get that, man. I get that as a game player and as somebody who's, you guys were talking about money. I spent well over $2,000 playing World of Tanks, back in the day. So I was a whale. I understand, enough talk. I've spent a ton of money on this. Just make all of the things that I want to happen. I understand that mentality. We're going to do this as quickly as possible. We're taking this very seriously. But some things do have procedures that have to be followed, and like the technical reviews and all that stuff. So as much as we're hurrying as fast as we can to do all this stuff, it does take time, right? There's no way around that.
Yeah,
it's just making sure it's done right.
Yeah,
that's just the biggest thing.
Well, I know, Solaris was one of those things that basically it was a good idea, but then the implementation of it. I mean, literally everyone I talk to, no one plays it, and
I mean, the implementation is fine.
Yeah. Well,
you really shouldn't critique the mode. It's a good mode.
No, it's a good idea as far as like getting stuff in there. But I think though, without talking to the community, I think was just rushed out there saying, hey, Russ goes, oh, this would be a good idea, and then not really talking to anybody. No one really plays it. I mean, even when it came out, no one played it, or no one that I know
it flopped, man. I mean, it was absolutely 100% a flop.
But so much amount of time and effort and and team that worked on it, like everything else.
So that's what we don't want to do this time, right? So exactly. exactly that point. We put a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort into that. Let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one closing thought. Lars in his Discord, like he has I wouldn't say a medium-sized community, it's a small-sized community, but a lot of very casual Mechwarrior Online player who left over the past few years, who are still active in his Discord. And he started some conversation, what would bring you back? And I think one of the main takeaways, at least that's what I feel like, is as Bida said, they're waiting for immediate changes. So I just want to second what Bida said. If you have the possibility, if you have those, as you call them, no-brainers, just push them out.
Yeah.
Especially if they're super low effort, because if they're low effort, chances are they're low effort to revert if something goes super wrong. And I think even if it's something small, as long as a player who doesn't interact with the forum feels that something has changed, I think that would be a good threshold to measure at this point. Yeah, I can tell those people in Lux community, hey, the game is active again. Come back, please. We want you.
True.
Yep.
True.
I hear you, man.
Sometimes, Ian's example just now is a little bit out there, but I would say SRMs have been needing help for some while. Like they're slower than MRMs. If you increase the velocity, not even by that much, a whole bunch of people are just going to try SRMs for a bit, and that's interesting. That's something different.
Yeah. Okay, so we got the present, we got the past. Now let's look towards the future, and then we'll jump on to Mechwarrior 5, if we can. As far as the future, I think we actually contacted him or talked about much of the future in itself. But
yes.
As yourself,
anyway, yeah.
How would you like to see the future, Daeron? Well, obviously, for it to go big, but what specifically kind of things you want to go ahead and see? I know it's a hard question there. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I just have to kind of, my head has been wrapped around what the community wants for 2.5 weeks. So it's hard for me. What I want is just for this community to exist. I want this game to exist. I love BattleTech and Mechwarrior. There's no arguing that this has been 35 years of my life. This franchise, and so. From everything from the tabletop to the books to the card games to every single iteration of every video game I have been involved in. And so this is more than just a job for me. This is a big part of my life and my existence. Maybe that's sad. I don't know, but it's, no. I love this and I want to be, every year at MechCon, I'd get up on stage and I would say, it's a great fucking time to be a Mechwarrior, it's a golden age. And just because I'm as old as I am, I've seen time go by really fast. So I appreciate this time when it's here. And I've learned to appreciate these things more than ever. And so, man, I want another 5 years of having this awesome Mechwarrior community. So whatever brings that, I want success. That's what I want. I want the Mechwarrior community to love the product. What I want is to fucking hit a home run with this, I want to do right by the game, do right by the community, and revitalize this game. That's what I want, whatever that means. There's nothing really that's going to be proposed, I don't think, where I'm going to be like, oh, unless people are switch it to Gundam or something like that, there's nothing that's going to make me not enjoy what the game is. I want to have fun too, and I can have fun in faction warfare. I have a lot. When I played World of Tanks, I played Clan War, so I loved that competitive aspect. I also have had a lot of fun with Solaris. This last weekend was dropping with people in Solaris. It takes a bunch of streamers doing it to get enough people in the queue to make it.
It's still fun though. I love Solaris.
I think there's something to it.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be. I think there's a kernel of fun there that can be tapped still. And so every aspect of the game, I can have fun. I still, after 8 years, plus, being a part of the friends and family before it came out and all that, I still have fun logging in and playing Mechwarrior Online. And that's absolutely legit. And so I am, I feel like I'm in a really good space here where I'm with the developers, but I also understand the gamer and the community. And so, yeah, I just want to see more of this, man. This has been the best time of my life. It's been my best job I've ever had, and I want it to continue. That's where I'm at.
My last question, then I'll let Bida
I want to sort of answer your question, Bob, in my own way.
Okay, go ahead.
Which
man.
should I quite remember the way that Mitch Gilliman would talk about game development. That it's all
God, yeah.
about spinning plates. So
Yes.
for me, if I were like looking to reinvigorate MWO, I want to set up a short-term little we're trying out little ideas plate. And I was like, all right, I listen to the community for a few weeks and I say, all right, this is the most interesting plate. I'm going to put it up there and I'm going to make it spin. And I'm going to go between all the different plates and just slowly add more plates and start getting the game rolling like, a big snowball that has been stationary for so long. We have a little ball rolling. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I've got more and more plates and then I'm just stuck spinning plates. And at least the fact is these plates being spun is because something's actually been done. And part of the spinning plates is totally, as a community manager, it would be going out and talking with the community saying, all right, I really love this plate, let's work on it. I've got some Russ on board. Tell me how I should spin this plate. We're really not good at game design, please tell me how to spin the plate. And that's what I want to hear personally, at least as far as moving forward with MWO.
My plates are plastic, so if they drop, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, Bob, go ahead.
My other question is, like, I know you were talking about, like, hanging out with streamers during the the one-on-one matches and everything. What is something that you're going to do as far as content creators, like YouTube and Twitch streamers? What are your plans to go ahead and most of marketing right now is actually through YouTube and through Twitch. And there's no real kind of marketing, like, I know it costs money to go put up ads like everywhere and everything, but most marketing is actually done through Twitch streamers or YouTubers. So what is something that you're going to do to help develop that?
Are you talking about
numbers on that?
What's that?
Do we have numbers on that, Bob? Like, how much is it just word of mouth?
Well,
how
have
much
you?
Is it
Yeah.
YouTube? How much in Twitch?
Well, like, I think most of it's on YouTube and most on Twitch, though. Like, word of mouth, like, basically, like Ian and Lars were saying, hey, I'm gonna get my. What's that? There are no numbers,
We
really.
don't have the numbers. We have a guest who has numbers.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind.
so-
Okay, go to your numbers.
Well-
Sorry.
I guess to combine both of them, like, how large of a factor is YouTube and Twitch? And then basically, if you are going to use YouTube and Twitch as advertising, how would you go about it to combine
what
the
about-
questions?
Yeah,
is that the question?
yeah. Actually, that's
Yes.
the question. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so okay. Marketing is not as simple as spend $10,000 and you'll
No.
get $15,000 back,
Nope.
right? If it was, we'd be doing it like crazy. Return on investment is first of all, it can be hard to track. We could pay for a 60-second YouTube video to be played, X amount of times a day or whatever on, X channels. Determining the actual return on investment is difficult. And so, I'm senior marketing is part of my position. It's not just community manager. So marketing, and that's also my background. I've come from a marketing background. Do I want more marketing? Absolutely. Like I see games like War Thunder, World of Tanks, or whatever, advertised everywhere. But they're huge games and huge developers that have a different marketing situation than we do. Every $10,000 we put out is it's significant for us, or whatever. I'm pulling numbers again.
Yeah.
But so we need to be smart even with our marketing. And I feel personally, having been a content creator, having been a Twitch streamer, for 10 years, I feel that's our biggest opportunity is supporting content creators because they're literally enthusiastic salespeople. I've sat in so many Twitch streams over the years where you witness people discovering the game. Popped in channel, this looks interesting, you're having fun, I want to try it. And so I feel like content creators are probably our biggest source of potential marketing. And just like before, I will be supporting content creators again, just because these first 2.5 weeks have been totally about focusing on all this information coming in. I haven't, I've done a little bit as far as establishing what I'm going to be doing to support influencers again. And so I will be doing that, and that will be a big part of our marketing plan. But also, we're creating videos, and I would like to get ads on YouTube and Twitch because I do feel like those can be effective. So that's part of my pitch in the, when we get to that point is I'll try and get the word out there to as many people as possible. I think word of mouth is going to be huge for us. If we actually follow through, put our money where our mouth is, and make changes and make the game more fun, people are going to find out. I've had so many people, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, contact me and say, show me the money, prove me wrong, bring me back. I challenge you, whatever. I love that kind of stuff, and I want to do that. I want to bring it back. So I think word of mouth is going to be huge. But yes, I absolutely think YouTube and Twitch are vital. Will we see ads on Facebook and Twitter? I don't know. At this point, I can't make that call, but I do. People say all the time, marketing, marketing, marketing. Yeah, I agree. PGI hasn't done a ton of marketing over the years. Very little. So the most of the marketing, in fact, was influencers, which was directly a result of my support. I went to Russ and said, again, just like I said, these are free salespeople. They're out there pitching our game to people. Maybe some kind of rewards program for referrals or whatever for these influencers. All kinds of things are in my mind as far as what we can do.
Yeah.
And I'm open to suggestions. I'm absolutely open to people coming and saying, you should do this for marketing, and here's why. So, basically, I get it. We need to bring more people into the game, and so we'll be looking at every possibility.
I think everyone gets the idea that marketing is valuable, and plenty of game support the Twitch and YouTube communities. I am surprised though we haven't heard you're saying just from your own experience as a streamer, etc., that you haven't necessarily got. We hear so little about what is actually effective, or how it all the different communities result in new players joining and all that. It's just with no metrics, it's very hard, at least even particularly on PGI side, to figure anything out.
It's hard to quantify, and I don't have really the metrics. All I have is my own personal experience over the years, seeing people watch YouTube videos or come into Twitch streams and say, I'm downloading the game right now, or and I've seen that over and over and over and over and over again through the years. And so really, that's all I have. I don't have any metrics, although I haven't asked for them yet because I've been too busy with this other stuff. So as far as that goes,
that is you've been focused on talking with the community, but at least is your job in terms of marketing. It is a surprise not looking at any of the metrics.
But the other thing is that the reason why is because I'm not doing marketing right now. I'm not going to market the game in its current state because that would be pointless, right? Like we need to make changes. The number one thing we got to do before I'm really going to put a lot of effort into marketing is improving the new player experience, right? Because that's going to be literally, So until we update that, there's just really no point. It'd be, I feel like throwing money at a wall. It's not going to be as effective as it could be.
But it's not about. It's just the research phase is. All I'm surprised at is that it doesn't cost anything to look at the archives and seeing what is player retention, what sources do players come from, etc.
It costs my sleep, man. I need sleep. I need at least 6 hours a day. I'm living on coffee right now.
Marketing is, of course, in a lot of companies I've been in, it's just, it's a huge part because, it's
I'm not taking it lightly, man. I'm not taking it lightly. It's just that we've got to have a viable product to market first. And right now, I just feel like that'd be throwing money down the drain.
What is viable totally depends on the success of marketing or how long people stay.
Well, it's the same thing, right? It's spinning plates. But I don't want to start bringing people in only to have them leave because the game's not in a good state. But also, on the other hand, we can't wait forever, right?
You'll bring people in with different effectiveness depending on how people even come in the first place.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that we talked almost like an hour and a half ago was first player experience, and we were gonna kind of get back into that because I think we're all very passionate about. I see Ian's doing a screen share here. We're gonna hop into this. So this is something that basically myself, Biter, and Ian had done. Again, I think I mentioned on Monday. Is that we basically replayed the tutorial to kind of go from scratch to get the feeling of a new player, because it's one of those things that whenever you're a more experienced player and you've been playing for like 4 or 5 years, you tend to forget what it's like as a new player. So we thought it would be a very good idea, like today, to get a refresh to really know what it's like.
So basically, I'm a UX designer as part of my job description. So I was thinking about what would be the ideal user experience for a new player who comes into Mechwarrior Online, which is thankfully something I do have a lot of experience with, since I am trying to get people in. And in combination between BrioS and me, I think we came up with a pretty good idea that shouldn't require too many resources. And Daeron, if you're up for it, I would like to pitch you this.
Yeah, go for it. I'm looking at it.
Experience?
Although, do you have the link so that I could pull it up? It's a little bit blurry in the.
We have it
Yes,
on our Discord,
absolutely.
actually, I believe.
It was posted earlier as well, though.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
But go ahead, present it to me, and what I'll do is I'll take, if you just send me the link at some point, I'll look at it after the podcast as well. And
I've reposted it in the chat.
Okay,
Sadly,
cool.
I can't
gave
figure
you
out how to
a-
zoom in, which is ridiculous. How do I zoom in?
I don't know. I can see it.
Left hold, control,
and then scroll wheel.
And scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in the Google Slides.
You have so many tabs open. Oh my god.
We always say how many tabs Ian has open. It's
Pornhub, what's that open for?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's
Is it?
I think you had this question is I'm not gonna lie.
No, I have very different sites.
okay.
We've opened over like 2D. Okay, so one of the big things that BrioS touched is are some of the requirements that are, in our opinion, necessary. Like trials need to be streamlined, potentially new builds, potentially just refresh some of the builds that are already out there. Like there are some good builds, but some need work. And most importantly, they need to have skills pre-applied. This is such a big thing, and I think
I agree.
that's kind of a no-brainer.
Let's just go through the story of what we figured out.
I was just kind of putting out the prerequisites before I dive into the storyline. Another prerequisite you already touched upon would be a proper tutorial for the Mech Lab. In our opinion, this can absolutely be a written article on the forum or on the wiki, as long as the new player can find it easily.
Easily found.
And yes, that's the keyword here.
Yep.
And then a few minor systems that we will discover. So, new person starts the game. Always the first thing, play, and kind of the same way as right now, they get dropped into the tutorial, the Mechwarrior Academy, which we went through and we agree is pretty good. There are some few minor details that can be tweaked, but it's a really good introduction into mech gameplay and should theoretically give you the tools necessary to just dive into quick play on paper on a basic level. So the next logical step should be a quick play match. And here is one of the new systems we are suggesting. Kind of like you, when you're in the tutorial, there are some parts of the UI that are grayed out, so you can only click specific things. Something like this for the main menu, where you force the person to click quick play as his first action in the main menu, so he doesn't get overwhelmed. Like, here, I'll take your hand and I'll guide you through the next few steps. So they do
right now they can select all the trial mechs. They can go do Solaris. They could do so many different things. It's like no, just
drop right into faction. Yeah.
Maybe for the first 25 games or something.
Because currently it's a very large info dump. Yeah. And mainly, if you are not used to a Mechwarrior experience or like a Armored Core mech game, this is going to be, it's a very wide overload. So just kind of boil it down to one thing at a time.
There's this YouTuber, the Mighty Jingles. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah,
I know. Yeah, he's good.
No, he's nice.
So we tried to pay him to do a video, and he logged into the game and couldn't make heads or tails of the Mech Lab, and he basically said no.
And
so
that's usually the new player experience.
Yeah. Yes, so I understand exactly what you're saying. It can be extremely overwhelming to new players when they come in and haven't had previous Mechwarrior experience or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like that, and it drives people away. So I agree.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So Ian, so go ahead. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I figured out
Good. Great.
Yep. Important thing in our opinion is they should dive in with a pre-selected trial mech, so they do not have to go into mech select. Something should be selected for them. That's a good all-arounder. We are thinking about something like a Shadowhawk or a Griffin, something that's medium fast, medium armor, medium weapon, just general decent. Sure. And no-brainer, they should be low tier. And one of the ideas would be maybe drop them in a skirmish match to not overwhelm them with quick play modes on the very first go. Just skirmish, have fun for a bit.
Because there's so many complicated game modes after all.
Mm-hmm.
Escort.
And that's out of the game.
Yeah, I know.
That's out of the game. Anyway.
So
after that first match, though,
After the
Yeah.
first match.
After that first match, you complete your first quick play match, you come out. Obviously, with every step you go, a new milestone should unlock or something should happen, ideally. So you want some kind of information. I've just done a paint level pop-up saying, by the way, there are more trials. And at this point, the trial mech selection should open up. So player can be like, okay, I got this pre-selected one, which was kind of weird, and let's try something else. So then is something that's kind of new. We think that pre-selected trial mech, which should be a good mix of all the different classes and playstyles, should be something that a new player gets to own after a specific number of matches. So we've said, so maybe play 5 matches and you own the mech. You get the pop-up content injector that's already there. You just get the mech.
The current conundrum for new players is, they play a bunch of matches, they get a whole bunch of C-bills.
They don't know what to spend it on.
You have to then go to the store and choose a mech, and not only that, they then have to buy all the upgrades.
Yeah.
And this is a really they're suddenly thrown into the mech lab that they have to pay for everything all of a sudden. There's thousands and millions of options. Here it just explodes. The idea with the original trial mech, that one mech that is given to you, this mech you can change all the options for free.
Mhm.
This way, people can fiddle around with the mech bay and totally learn the systems on just one simple starting mech. They don't have to don't have to choose what mech from the list and ask somebody, there's like 400 mechs here, which one do I choose? No, they have one to start with, and they can fiddle with it however they like. They can learn what they like and don't like in the game. And that's even though it is giving one mech away for free, we feel that this really helps overcome the big hurdle of the mech lab and the store.
Yeah,
dude, I don't care about giving mechs away at all. In fact, just so you know where I come from on this, I feel like we could do more. We could give the new players even more than just one trial, maybe a couple, because ultimately, obviously, they're going to be making wrong choices, right? Because they don't know what they're doing, and so to punish them and go, well, you made your choice, now you're going to have to live with it for 50 matches. Like
heat sinks, dummy.
I think we should make new players are gold. Like, we need to keep our new players. So everything we can do to make that experience better. I'm open, man. Like, I totally am down with this, and let's take it further.
One idea. Sorry. Just what originated this idea is that I've always talked in the past about how all the trial mechs should just allow you to edit all their loadouts for free and have any skill loadout you want on them. The idea is they are a trial. You can try them out, but obviously the current implementation is that they're kind of sucky builds. They're unskilled. You can't fiddle around with them and really try them out, really. So,
well, remember, the way things are right now is because buying mechs was our primary, revenue stream, and so now that's not so much the case, or not the case. We should be open to this, much more. So
the idea as well, at least, is somebody picks up, they play with a trial mech for a while, and the trial mech cycle in and out. So if they want to have that experience, they have to buy it for C-bills.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I kind of just want to touch on and make sure it's really heard, is that any change you do is not going to cost you in-game C-bills. To be, because I equate it to having a ball of clay where I can mold it, I can morph it, but there's no downside where mainly if I do fuck up on this build, I'm not going to lose my C-bills because I would be a new player. So I think it'd be really good that if mainly if it's a trial mech, you own it. You can fiddle with it, but there's no downside to all the changes you do. Don't charge them, in-game money. Once they begin to purchase mechs later on, that's when they can use their in-game currency. The trial mech should just be a totally free sandbox experience.
Well, World of Tanks is the same thing. You get the tier 1 tanks pretty much for free, and then after that, you gotta spend, X amount of things for tank space or tank base, whatever it's called. And I think that's a good idea with the trial mechs. That's an awesome idea, actually. I love that idea. Because I see too many people buying clan mechs, and they got their one mech, and that's it. And then they're stuck with it until they play, like you said, 50 matches. And then they go, okay, I have just enough to buy another mech now, type thing.
The idea, though, of course, just here is that we don't want to necessarily open up the mech lab and all the options right away. That they have to play a certain number of matches, and then they get free reign of the mech lab and stuff.
Okay, what's next?
Yeah. You already talked about it. Once you're on the Mac, you get a DUI again, gets grayed out, and you can only click Mac Lab. At that point, there should be another pop-up giving you either an embedded video. I don't know, can the launcher currently do embedded? Doesn't matter. Worst case, you have a link that you click on and it opens a web page where there's a written article or something. It should be fairly easy and straightforward to do.
Okay.
Then you can play on Mac Lab with the one trial Mac you get for free. And they should be a separate pool, like basically unlimited inventory of free stuff. But again, important is if you remove equipment, you do not get to keep in your personal inventory, because I do understand that.
Yeah, and,
On
and, and-
PGI side, they need to make sure there's no bugs or glitches or
Yeah.
exploits.
just to clarify for people who might not what that means, it means on this Mac, if you have a 200 XL engine and you move it out, you cannot put that engine in any of your other Macs. It's only
Also,
yeah.
also you don't take your old XL engine 200, put it in, take it out, and it disappears into the void. That would be terrible.
So it'd be one of those things where basically if anything you remove, you cannot sell it, you cannot change it to another Mac. It is gone, but it's still in your inventory.
Just for
It's
that Mac,
locked
though,
to
right?
That Mac, yes. It's locked
Okay.
to that Mac, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
ultimately, this is something PGI has to figure out with their systems behind the
Yeah.
hood. It's ultimately though the more flexible system, you should never touch the player's inventory. That they're just able to pull things in and out of the mech willy nilly, and it never
Because
takes things
again,
out or in.
trial Mac, because it's a trial.
But
so,
that should
anyway.
only be up to a certain amount of matches, like say 25 matches, and then it has a pop up saying, "Okay, your next match. This is going to be your mech. It's free. Do whatever you want to, but this is going to be it. You can't switch out things because obviously during those 25 matches, you're going to be switching out things and doing crazy stuff and figuring out like what works for you. If you just have it where the trial mech just has unlimited stuff, I mean, hell, I want a trial mech. Just start blowing stuff through there without spending money.
Yeah, that's the reason why we were thinking about just giving away one Mac, because it would be a crazy valuable Mac for anyone.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, to have, and I think
it could be kind of like how Bob said, where and kind of to mix it with Daeron's idea, more than one trial mech, but then limit to how many changes you can do for free.
yeah, like 25 matches or 50 matches.
I mean, you
or
can
something.
always make the system more complicated.
Exactly.
But just have a disclaimer saying, hey, by the way, add after match 25, 27, like whatever it says, don't make any more changes. If you do, it's going to cost money.
Yeah.
What we put down here is basically the most simple system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
These resources.
Because we didn't know how far we could go with it.
Well, everything can go as far as you want, but this is where I would apply what I said earlier about simplifying. I'm not saying dumb it down. I'm just saying for new players, this is where I think simplification, would help.
This is what indefinitely it's doing, that you don't have to pick a mech, that you're actually given, when you're given a mech that you can actually fiddle with without consequences, and there's it pops up the tutorial. Slowly, button by button, the options are being opened up to you.
Which I've played games that do that, right? So we all know that experience, and I agree. I like the hand walking a lot better.
A little bit, yes. Okay, and then Ian, let's move on to the next arrow there.
Yep. So at this point, the main new player experience should be complete. They should be familiar with quick play. They should be familiar with the Mech Lab. They should have the basic understanding. So now you can show them the rest of the game, kind of. So again, you get a guided button to the store. You have to click the store once. You get a pop-up saying, here's where you can buy new mechs. Also, by the way, there are special deals, and you can buy MC here. And this would be the obvious place to promote real money purchases.
The new starter bundle, or at least something like that.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like the idea of a new starter bundle.
Starter pack.
Yeah, I think the old one still has old skills or something like
we've
that.
refreshed the Steam bundles as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all those need a refresh for all the new
As
players.
I've said in many podcasts, at least, what a lot of these free-to-play games find is the hardest part is to get someone to open their wallet once, to have that one impulse buy. And so that's where you want the really valuable starter pack.
Yeah.
And just to touch on something you guys brought up in the last podcast, yes, the store completely needs to be overhauled. It needs to be updated. It needs to be optimized. There's ancient packs on there. So, I'm totally aware.
Okay, that's also great to hear. All right, so at this point, basically last step, remaining game modes, I just, at this point, blurred out some of the unimportant things on the left. Ideally, you would get a little arrow message, with on most phones, apps have these kind of walkthroughs where, by the way, this is a faction play. Here you can play lore, whatever. This is Complay. Here you can find the super competitive games. This is Solaris. Click on your own risk.
Nobody
something
likes
like
it.
this.
Don't press it.
It actually has cobwebs. It's been done for a while.
Yeah,
go.
and
Of
then
course,
once
all
you're
of
done
this-
it, you just open up everything.
Yeah, and of course, all of this is also dependent on, is faction play and Solaris going to be
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah,
permanent
definitely.
part of,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
spinning a bunch
the
of
most
plates.
the most important steps are, of course, just first the initial ones, which is
Yeah.
slowly, expanding the game to the player rather than them having, just a huge tables of options. Of
Jumping in the
options.
deep end. Yeah. No, I
Yes.
agree. And I totally like this. So since you guys gave me the link, I will,
Okay.
bring that to the team. And
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
I like it.
Okay. Anyone else on this before we move
I think
to a
that
little
was
bit
pretty
more?
much like the
Okay.
main
That's the
showcase we had
main-
was this here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
as Bob, you demonstrated perfectly, you can talk about any detail of this and put a lot of money in. The question is, what can be done that's cheap enough, fast enough, and effective enough?
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Sorry, that's
Yep.
my wife there. Okay.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to close.
Okay,
this
so
one.
it's so like we have the past, the present, and the future now, basically. We're also gonna tip a little bit into Mechwarrior 5, as in what kind of questions you guys have for Mechwarrior 5?
Well, Bob, maybe Darren wants
Oh,
to
yeah, go
put
ahead,
out some
Darren, sorry.
closing thoughts on Mechwarrior Online.
Okay, sorry. Closing thoughts on Mechwarrior Online, please.
Or maybe you have some topics that you want our feedback on right now.
No, actually,
We'll have that in a few
I'm
weeks.
cool. I'm cool just being here, man. It's cool.
Yeah. If I'm going to have closing thoughts on MechWarrior Online, it's, I kind of already stated it. It's
Yeah.
just that I'm super looking forward to the opportunity that we all have here to make this game that, we love or loved at some point, viable still for another 4 to 5 years. So, my only point is I'm here. This is serious. And I'm taking it seriously, and I look forward to the success that we are all going to have, hopefully.
All right, so then closing question for Mechwarrior Online. What is the single best way for people to make their voice and opinion heard right now? And in the upcoming weeks?
To you.
Probably, so Monday, I'm going to be starting a thread that I explained to you, where I'll be talking about what I was working on the previous week, what I'm going to be working on the upcoming week. That'll be a great place to get feedback. So that's definitely works. Or you can email me at daeron.katz@piranhagames.com. I read every single email. Even if I don't respond, I'm reading everything. It's really hard for me to respond to everybody. So I'm doing the best that I can. But so those are probably the two most direct ways. But people can reach me on Discord. I'm Bombadil, or no, I'm now, I think I switched it. Yeah, I'm Daeron
Daeron
Katz on
Katz, yeah.
Discord now. So I'm on Discord. You can, whether you're taking part of, there's a bunch of groups that have formed basically to talk about Mechwarrior. I'm watching those threads. You can direct message me on Discord. You can reach me on Twitter, whether that's my personal account or the Mechwarrior Online account, or even the Mechwarrior 5 account. I read all those. Am I missing anything? Pretty much to this point, every form of communication I am reading, Facebook posts, everything. So, but I think the strongest, best ways right now are going to be the forums and emailing me directly. And then, moving on to these next few weeks, it's going to be taking part in the discussions. Those discussions can be happening in roundtable type meetings on podcasts or whatever, or they could be happening, and I would say probably more appropriately, on the appropriate threads on the forum.
Okay.
That's going to be kind of the official place. But I think we're also going to work through a lot of issues in the discussions, the online, the roundtables and stuff like that, where we can really bounce ideas. Somebody says something, somebody counters it, and we work things out. So
Yeah, because we don't want a giant anger hate session salt rant on people.
yeah, and then also with each one of these online forums, whatever, not forums, but roundtables or whatever, we will be posting those in threads on the forums so that people can, if they couldn't attend, they can still take part in that discussion.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, that would be the ways.
And
Very
to let everyone
cool.
know, I will leave links. I'll get some links from you and everything, and I'll link everything to get in contact with Daeron. So just let you guys know.
Yep.
Okay, so
Mech 5.
Mech 5.
5. What's going on with that?
What's going on with that?
Well, you guys touched on in the last podcast. We're laying out the groundwork to be doing multiple updates a year for years to come. So again, this is just like exciting for me. This is, I enjoy both games. I stay up late playing Mech 5 myself. Like I'm one of those people that I'm fairly OCD, so I get caught in that loop of, like these games that are looped like that. I just, I want to build my ultimate lances and got to get it. I collect the mechs, and so it's a game that I really enjoy. But what's exciting to me is I already know, I know what this DLC is, but I already know what the next DLC is, and so
interesting,
or at least partially. There's still stuff that can be added to it.
You have my attention now.
Yeah, yeah, and then, now I'm going to disappoint you because I'm not going to tell you.
I know.
But yeah, but to me, what's exciting about it is this game's still totally a living, growing beast, right? And so, multiple things about that. With every update, there's more tools that are then provided for the modders. I'm a big fan of modders. Like damn it, what's the post-apocalyptic game?
Fallout.
Yeah, so
Fallout,
played the shit out of that game.
Yeah.
Like thousands of hours. I love mods, and so what I love is seeing these tools being delivered to the modders. We're already talking with some modders about this current DLC and what that's going to add to their plate. So to me, again, I guess what I'm getting at is that I'm just excited about the future because I just see constant money being put into it, development, new features, new mechs, new weapons, new equipment, new all kinds of stuff. That means that this game is also going to have a long life, at least 4 to 5 more years. And so I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about this DLC. There's some really cool features to it. And I'm obviously also excited about what next year is going to bring to Mechwarrior 5.
Question, aren't you also, somewhat responsible for the marketing for Mechwarrior 5? So obviously you have to shift your focus over to that for, when it comes out on Steam, for when the DLCs come out, etc., etc. At least from my thought process was along the lines, my first thought was like, is there going to be any cross-pollination between the two games? Something like, if you're an MWO player, you get something in Mechwarrior 5. If you're a Mechwarrior 5 player,
yeah, same thing they did with the when you brought out the advanced ordering
came out.
Yeah, the advanced ordering. So yeah,
absolutely. That stuff is being discussed, and yeah, totally aware.
Cool.
And I love crossover type stuff, and of course, it makes sense, right? I mean, like for me, I don't think I'm special. I feel like I'm a typical BattleTech Mechwarrior fanatic or whatever, and so I love all the games. I love Hairbrain's BattleTech. I love having Mechwarrior 5. I love having Mechwarrior Online. Like if I have an itch, I have some way of scratching it with the product that's out there right now. And I do switch between all those games, and so I'm just stoked. And so crossover totally makes sense to me.
Yeah,
why
definitely.
not? It just encourages somebody to expand what they're doing.
In my head, though, at least it is obviously it's two different responsibilities. If you're this has to be a big drive for some big Mechwarrior 5 content coming out, well, you won't have time to read through all the forums so much, of course, and you're not Russ, you're not the person in charge, etc., etc. So what is PGI's what sense have you got in regards to their priorities as far as either game goes?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Like,
we have
which
time for
game is
both,
more
basically. Yeah, I think
so.
That's
So I said, what is their list of priorities? Because ultimately, of course, you've set the tone for MWO that there's going to be a lot of talking until the end of this year. But at the end of this year as well, there's a big, huge thing that you're going to have to do for Mechwarrior 5, and maybe we'll start doing changes for Mechwarrior Online, but then, well, there'll be another DLC drops, and obviously you won't have the time to commit to that. So in my head, at least, it makes a lot of sense to plan out, the plates you want to spin for MWO to start and end. Each change should start and end before you have to switch back to Mechwarrior 5. That within the office, at least for any marketing department, you have to balance, what time you're focusing on and what time other people want you to focus on, and so that should all impact your plan for how you handle either game.
Well, number one, I'm not doing it by myself. I have a team that we're
Okay.
working with,
Okay.
and Matt is a huge component in that. I work under Matt, and so we work a lot together every single day. Every single day we're having meetings. We're meeting about MWO. We're meeting about Mechwarrior 5. We're meeting about marketing. We're meeting about the releases. We're meeting about, already we're working on stuff 3 months out or whatever on both games. And so, and then we have other people on the team as well. We'll be hiring more people to the Mechwarrior Online team. So it's really, like you said, it's spinning a lot of plates right now. But even though I'm focusing my discussion on Mechwarrior Online, I'm every single day, every single week also working on Mechwarrior 5, including looking at our marketing possibilities. We work with an agent for PR and marketing, so we're communicating with her. And so, even though I might be focusing my discussion and my communication with the community right now on MWO, I'm still also applying my time to Mechwarrior 5. That's why I said I'm exhausted. I'm not complaining. I'm absolutely stoked that I'm exhausted. I had a great basically summer break and summer vacation, but I was itching to work again, and boy, believe me, I'm freaking working. So but it's good, it's like really positive. I'm super happy that workload is there for me.
Okay.
I would say
I'm
that
just gonna
I'm
throw in, I do
concerned.
not envy your workload.
Yeah, no, I
As
know.
someone who does
Well, we're
6-hour
glad you're
days,
doing it.
I do not
Hey,
want
you know what?
to do your shoes right now.
I always say though, I'm not digging ditches in the hot sun. So, poor me. I'm working hard, but I'm sitting inside, and it's a mentally stressful job, but it's not
still
physically.
draining,
Because you need to be able to balance out this job, particularly if you're going to plan it out for months and months. And
If we're going to do it right.
If you're constantly exhausting yourself and you're also balancing so many different things, you're eventually going to suffer from, decision fatigue, from information fatigue, etc., etc. And I'm not sure that's a very good working environment.
Well, and my wife completely agrees. And so, one thing that happened over this break that I've had from being let go in February to being rehired last month, is that I also learned to appreciate my family time. And I'm coming back into this, really trying to stay as balanced as possible. Now, with that in mind, I also talked to my wife and I said, this first month or two is going to probably be more intense than what it will be after that. Because number one, we are a small team. We need to hire people. And number two, because like I said, if I fuck this up, I fucked it up. So I'm not going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
I'm putting all my time and effort into it right now. And I am exerting myself, and I'm working weekends right now, but I know it's not permanent, and there's a reason I'm doing it right now, because this is a serious thing for me. Like, we are going to do this, and we're going to do it right. And so right now it's a major workload, but I'm not complaining. I'm fine. I'm not.
I bring this up just because,
it's
I'm concerned that,
too
no matter how
much.
determined you are, it can be too much. And that's why with time, you'll need to, reduce the number of plates and focus on just those and spinning them just right.
I will. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mom. I'll make sure.
He just cares about you.
Yeah, he cares about you.
I totally understand. If for this to be done right, we need to have our mental capacity at full. And so, totally aware of that. And like I said, I knew that this first part was going to be intense, but I do have an awesome team working with us, and people like, I was just having a discussion with Mark Nicholson last night, who is, he's a mech modeler, and he was just like, he was as pumped up as you guys or anybody in the community that this is happening again. He's like, I want to build some new mechs. And it's just, we have some really passionate, strong developers that are excited for this stuff to be happening again. And so I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. Thankfully, we have, we do have a team still that's going to be helping. And don't worry, I will be prioritizing my health so that I can do this correctly.
I have a selfish question.
It's focusing on the productive work environment.
Yeah.
That endless crunch, of course. You could do it in short bursts, but
hey, we're not CD Projekt Red. We're not doing that kind of crunch,
Oh God! Wow!
Wow!
Shots fired.
Dude, did you see that they're releasing their freaking game on
December 10th, I think, right?
The thing is, with constant crunch, there are plenty of studios like EA, Microsoft who run on constant crunch. Just 4 years of development, constant crunch, and the amount of productivity people get from those people is about the same as if they didn't crunch at all.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's a huge topic within the game industry, and I can say that Russ runs a healthy environment.
Good.
And
Okay.
and so I'm proud to be. I know there'll be comments about this, but I'm proud to be a PGI employee. I've loved my time working with PGI, and I respect Russ as much as people want to say things about that. That's fine, but I've worked with people. I've worked for myself since I was 20 years old. I've worked with a lot of people, and I absolutely respect Russ, and I absolutely respect the team and the company. And that's legit, man. And people can argue with me and debate it. That's fine. But I'm really happy where I'm at. We're not being overworked at all. Everybody's working hard, but we're not being overworked. And obviously now, because of COVID and we're all working from home, there's a little bit more flexibility and so forth too in how we spend our time. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm aware of all that stuff, and I will be working on it.
Okay. Now that Biter Mom has talked to there, I'm gonna do one selfish question.
What's my tone been? It's been product manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Just team manager, dude. Like, I've been pretty critical thus far in many other places.
It's all right.
I have one selfish question. Can you talk to Matt about taking out the destroy UAV in events? That's a selfish thing for me, because I freaking hate that.
Never forget that there's always a shoot this many UAVs.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So you just want UAVs out of events?
No. Doing a UAV is fine, but take it out of shooting them, because you have to have 12 people drop a UAV, and you're fighting against 11 other people shooting a UAV.
But Bob, what are we going to talk about if none of the events feature your favorite?
We can talk about the good stuff that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, true. True. Gives me something to talk about later on. Okay, cool.
I'll talk to him.
I think my other question was,
wait, just to make sure I'm saying the right thing. You're the reason it drives you crazy is because 12 people are trying to shoot a UAV?
No. Okay. 12 people have to
and
drop
not
a
focusing
UAV.
on the mechs?
Well, no, actually. Now, the odds of you shooting it down are hard, because you're actually fighting against the people, your 11 teammates, and then also 12 people on the other team have to shoot a UAV up in order to go shoot it down. Right. So you're fighting against your own guys to go shoot this thing.
So you gotta help the team to get the UAV up, and then that team has to shoot the. So it's like a vicious cycle of
I mean, sometimes it took me 20 matches to shoot the damn thing, and it's like, thank God I got it done, type thing. But anyways, that's just me. That's my selfish question. Okay, second question is, when is the DLC for Mech 5 coming out?
December 10th.
December 10th? Okay, that's why you're saying that.
The day that Cyberpunk is dropping.
Big drop.
Damn.
They literally just came in and dropped a bomb on our release. Who the hell is going to care about Mechwarrior 5 when
God.
Cyberpunk
comes out? Every gamer I know, including myself, has been waiting for Cyberpunk, and then they drop it right.
I mean, I'm drooling at streaming that game.
I'm
so
gonna play Mechwarrior 5.
Yeah, I mean that sucks. That sucks.
I'm gonna be playing everything.
So can you maybe you can say on this Steam pricing? Is that something you're willing to?
Yeah, that's another thing too.
What's your question?
Is the Steam pricing gonna be the same as the Epic Games Store pricing, including potential Christmas sales?
I would say you'll be happy with the pricing. I don't. Okay. Here's the reason I'm being hesitant right now is because I don't know if I'm trying to remember if Russ has officially announced any of the pricing, and I don't want to be that guy that hey Darren, why did you say? But anyway, the pricing is falling within the range that you guys were talking about and wanting and hoping. So you'll be happy with the price.
Cool.
Right.
As a person who has not played Mech 5 yet,
I know, but Bob's going to get it for you.
Yes,
I'm gonna buy it. He listened. He listened there. I'm buying it for you, man, because I want you to play it.
and then once we get it, I'll play through the whole entire damn thing. Because
I think you know what, honestly, for the people that didn't buy it yet and they've been waiting, they're going to be really happy with the price points, and I think that'll encourage people to get into it for sure.
Very cool. Can't wait.
Cool. Yeah, we were talking about potential year 1 edition, something like that. So cool to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I think we're probably gonna end it right there. I know we've talked a whole lot. You have one final thing.
Final question. So, Darren, mental health is super important, and I just want to ask you, what are you doing to stay mentally healthy, to blow off steam and those kind of things?
I go work on my boat. You know, you see my my maritime decorations there. Yeah, I mean, it's all for me. What's keeping me mentally healthy is my family. I have a wonderful wife and daughter, and outside hobbies. I love the outdoors where I live in the Pacific Northwest. That's my, Discover PNW. If you go to discoverpnw.com, you can see some of the stuff that I'm doing in the outdoors up here. I love getting outside. That's the big thing for me. Like, I sit in this chair in this office, in my bedroom, every single day for many, many, many hours. So to me, what's keeping me mentally healthy is getting the hell out, going and climbing a mountain, going to some rivers and whatever, taking a ride in my boat, and being with my family. So yeah,
Cool.
mental health in today's climate for all kinds of, exterior reasons is very difficult, whether we're dealing with COVID or politics or just anything. I deal with a lot of Twitch streamers and YouTubers that have anxiety issues and depression issues. And man, I understand that. I've been there myself. I've dealt with severe depression in my time, and anxiety. Boy, believe me, before with NG, I was, every day waking up, am I going to lose my job today? Because you just never know, and so that anxiety can really affect us. And I think mental health is something that we all need to take more seriously, both here in the States and everywhere around the world. Mental health is significant these days.
That's huge, yeah, because I know personally, I have depression and anxiety. Yeah, and it's rough. And I'm glad to hear you're taking care of it. I know actually here in the States, I just got cleared for medical marijuana, so I'm going to be
Congratulations.
doing that pretty soon. So I'm going to be doing that leap myself. But
hey, you know what? CBD. I mean, THC aside, CBD has been helping a lot of people.
That. That's actually like this whole entire week. I began taking it on Tuesday, and like I'm not like jittery. I've been sleeping a whole lot better. Sleep's been huge now.
What state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just curious what states are moving forward on that. But yeah, I mean, mental health is such a huge freaking issue, man, and it kills me. I get depressed hanging out with people in Twitch streams, not because they're depressing, but because I just feel so sad for people that are battling these things, and it's so serious. Like, I don't know how it is in Germany or other parts of Europe or whatever, but man, in America, we do not take mental health seriously enough at all.
We don't.
So I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and and my wife, she had gone to school for psychology, and and she did, some internships, and how we did stuff in the hospitals was not the best way, and I could go on for hours.
I think we could talk for another hour about mental health stuff, but to return to the topic of MWO, let me just sort of give my quick sort of conclusion. I've talked about
Let's go back to the beginning.
I like wrapping it all up nicely. I'm just saying that in the past, PGI, they will often do a fairly good job, but they often work themselves out and do not come back to the things, etc., etc. And right now at least we've got lots of promises for lots of talk, and maybe have a whole month of extra talk. But as I sort of I felt like at the end, it's sort of something I've heard people mention is you want to work smarter, not harder. And that's really, I'm not sure necessarily in my heart of hearts if PGI has still really improved on that fact. And I think talk is still the way that works for them right now, but always, at least in a work environment, you want to try and improve and make things more efficient and make everybody much more, getting those plates spun and getting things done, rather than just chitter-chattering about it and working yourself to the bone. I need to get some things over to my boat, and I pick them up and I walk in the wrong direction. Well, that's great motivation. I love it. But you've obviously actually made it yourself harder for yourself.
We'll see.
That's just the thing I'm worried about.
We'll see in the future, though. Basic, I know, Darren, like talking to you before at MetCon and plus, like in messages and everything. I mean, I have high hopes. You're very enthusiastic, and then actually, like Bruce, like we always talked about HBS.
The guy taking the rocks the wrong way has plenty of enthusiasm.
Well,
but obviously you should put it on a car. You
should
put it in a car. You should take.
But
it
I trust Darren to take it into a certain
direction.
position, though.
It should go in the correct direction.
Well, like I take it from there, like talking talk about like Mitch Gittleman, right? Okay, I would follow that guy to hell and back, basically, just because of like whatever it is. Even if he's going in the wrong direction, that guy's just freaking amazing, you know.
But he is also very good at kicking people in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. He'll tell people no, no, it's not going to happen.
He knows when to say no. He when he talks to people, he has an idea, a plan, and that's why I brought up the spinning plates thing, because it's a brilliant example. You know, just put your mind around it, and that's because because Mitch has a very good grasp of the topics of how to handle people, how to push projects in the right direction, and that's why he is a brilliant project lead. And
so one thing, if you don't mind me just speak, Lars, you want to go, and then I'll
no, Darren, please go ahead.
So
yeah.
I just don't want you guys to forget anything you're gonna say, but basically, here's the deal. I get what you're saying. You know, like there's been a long history of, potentially things being done the wrong way. So there's nothing I can say to that, right? It is what it is. The history is what the history. The things that have been done have been done. So at this point, all I can do is just prove it, and that's going to take doing it. That's going to take what's happening over the future months, the weeks and months. And so, but what I don't want to do is go back to a thing where PGI is just making the updates that PGI wants to do, and you guys have to live with those updates, right? So I'm taking on a very difficult task, which is getting community input. Mitch doesn't do that. I love Mitch. I totally love Mitch. I love the way he does things. I love BattleTech, the game. But that's not where we're at, and we're not Mitch. I'm not Mitch. Russ is not Mitch, and we're not BattleTech. And that they had a very specific goal, and none of it had to do with community input. We're doing a completely different thing here. Like basically, we have two options, right? One is keep doing things our way, or do things with community input. And so, we can't do things with community input without having these discussions. If we don't have these discussions, then it's really just PGI doing whatever PGI wants to do. So it's a crazy, it is spinning a bunch of plates. I hope I don't drop any. I hope I don't crack any, and it is a balancing act, but that's my whole career right now at this point is balancing on me making this happen successfully with the community, with PGI, and coming with some cohesive plan that makes sense on every level, makes it more fun, makes it more profitable, and makes it last for the next 4 to 5 years. And so that's my goal. It's not easy, but I think we can totally do it.
Okay. So there you go. Dear community, please play Mechwarrior Online or Daeron goes homeless.
For the price of a cup of coffee a day, you can keep me employed.
There you go.
All right, great. Well, with that being said, I'm glad we gave Darren the last word. That was actually my goal. He did it himself.
Yeah, definitely.
Glad to have that happen. But again, everyone, this has been the First Circuit Podcast, episode 130. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll make sure to put all the links and everything down below for the forum post, the email, and any kind of other
Facebook, like whatever links we
talk about during the podcast. I'll be down below, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye, Ian. Bye, Biter. Bye, Darren.
Next episode.